Chapter 1651. The hatred, despair, and the pleasure of revenge when he was blackened. One would follow a corrupted weapon for the rest of one's life. It would be strange if one didn't break down under such extreme negative emotions. Lar was speechless and looked at Dagger Mu with disappointment. Dagger Mu felt that Lar was distancing himself from him. He said to Ning Shu, "You don't need Lar's protection now. Why do you keep him by your side? Giving alms from above is disgusting." Ning Shu said, "Oh, so what?" Dagger Mu was speechless. Ning Shu looked at Pei Ji, who was hanging high in the air. Pei Ji raised his hand and said with a smile, "I want you to become my user." Ning Shu sneered. "Although you're not a corrupted weapon, you're much smarter than one. Corrupted weapons will become corrupted because of the hatred in their hearts. They'll eat the flesh of their users and suffer the pain of corruption for the rest of their lives. It's fun to be corrupted, but you'll be tortured forever. I'm guessing that your previous users all died unnatural deaths." Ning Shu looked at Armor Pei Ji. Pei Ji shook his head. "This is the first time we've met. It's not good to slander me like this. I'm just a defensive weapon. I don't have much combat power." Ning Shu smiled. "Just now at the inn, when you talked to me, some of the guests looked at me with sympathy and pity." "Why would they pity me?" Ning Shu asked. "Because they know about you." Pei Ji clapped. "You say it like it's true. You don't have to suffer the pain of being corrupted, and you're very free." Only Dagger Mu was stupid enough to pay with his own corruption. Ning Shu sneered. Hearing Ning Shu's words, Lar stood in front of Ning Shu and looked at Pei Ji warily. "So, you've never thought of forming a contract with my master?" Pei Ji smiled. "Even if we can't form a contract now, we can still work together. I have to understand my user's character first. I'm a free weapon. I only work with people temporarily. Most people know that I don't form contracts with people. Because everyone who contracts with you will die." "That's right. I'm so disappointed in them." Pei Ji looked up at the sky. Ning Shu kicked Dagger Mu. "Learn from me. Be smart. It's not the only way to succeed if you eat your own contractor. There are many other ways to kill your contractor. You chose the stupidest way." Dagger Mu was speechless. What should they do now that he had turned black? Sometimes, you hate someone so much that you want to drink their blood and eat their flesh. Ning Shu looked at the armored Pei Ji. Perhaps this person was the one who had killed Lar and Nicole. Armor Pei Ji was by Nicole's side. Perhaps he was tired of the relationship between Lar and Nicole, or perhaps Nicole had disappointed Pei Ji, so he killed her directly. Earlier in the inn, Ning Shu had noticed that many people were looking at Pei Ji with a very subtle expression. It was a kind of longing and fear. Whoever had an armor like Pei Ji would have an additional layer of protection. They would have armor that could block attacks. Armor Pei Ji was the kind of weapon that humans admired. He had good innate conditions and sufficient strength. He killed people according to his own preferences because he had enough capital to be arrogant. If someone hurt him, he would kill the other party. Nicole should be a toy that Pei Ji saw and followed by his side. In the end, he felt bored and killed her directly. Then, he began to wander around the world. Of course, this was only Ning Shu's inner guess. When he was teased by Pei Ji in the inn, Ning Shu was also observing him. He was so leisurely teasing people, and no one came to trouble him afterward. It showed that Armor Pei Ji was a powerful person who did not need to be afraid of trouble. Speaking of high and mighty, Pei Ji should be the one who was high and mighty. Leisurely, playing in the world, good and evil, it all depended on his mood. Even if a weak person was bullied in front of him, he could walk over without a change in his expression, even if someone asked him for help. The previous users had disappointed him. They had killed the users directly. Moreover, They did not fall into darkness and did not have to endure the pain of darkness. What else could he say? Nicole was so unlucky to have met such a person. Ning Shu, it's all my fault for seeing through too much. Pei Ji snapped his fingers. You're an interesting girl. Why don't we get to know each other? Ning Shu took a step toward Pei Ji and said with a smile, I also think you're interesting. Let's exchange ideas. Pei Ji took a few steps back. You seem to be hostile to me. Can I ask why? Because I'm very narrow-minded. I've just been teased by you 3 times. I have to get revenge. Ning Shu took another step toward Pei Ji. Pei Ji took a step back. Since we can't come to an agreement, then goodbye. Pei Ji's figure suddenly disappeared in front of Ning Shu. Dagger Mu saw that Pei Ji actually ran away, and his face was full of black lines. He said as if he was asking for credit, Armor Pei Ji has another function, which is invisibility. It's very powerful. Did I let you talk too much? I saw it. Ning Shu released his spiritual power, trying to detect Armor Pei Ji's figure, but it really seemed to have disappeared. This guy hid really well. He used to be by Nicole's side, but he didn't know that this guy could become invisible. He only knew that Pei Ji's defensive ability was one of the best among defensive weapons, but he didn't know that it had an invisibility function. It was simply an assassination weapon. No wonder it was ranked at the top of the weapon list. Nicole wasn't tempted by such a weapon. Without a contract, how could he hurt the noble heart of a weapon? He was more and more sure that this guy killed Nicole and Lar. A weapon that could be equipped with external weapons. He didn't know if this guy would still pester her. This was a big problem. Ning Shu turned around and kicked Dagger Mu away. Look at the person you've provoked. With your IQ, he's at least a few streets ahead of you. If there's a next time, I'll break you. No, I'll teach you a lesson this time. Ning Shu grabbed Dagger Mu on the ground. He grabbed his neck with force. Dagger Mu's face turned red, but he couldn't break free. He turned into a dagger. Ning Shu pulled the dagger into an arc with both hands. If he used a little more force, the dagger would break. Lar grabbed Ning Shu's wrist. Ning Shu let go of the dagger and threw it on the ground. Dagger Mu turned into a human and looked at Ning Shu in horror. If it weren't for Lar's face, I would have broken it. If I hadn't given you something to eat last time, your soul would have been sucked away by the great heaven-changing array. A soul like you full of resentment, hatred, and hatred is what the great heaven-changing array likes. Be a man and have a conscience. You can hate the whole world, but don't be so arrogant in front of me. Ning Shu was a little annoyed with Dagger Mu. Chapter 1652. The hatred, despair, and the pleasure of revenge when he was blackened. To follow a fallen weapon for a lifetime, it would be strange if a person's emotions were constantly in such a negative situation. Lar was speechless and looked at Dagger Merch with disappointment. Dagger Merch sensed Lar's alienation and said to Ning Shu, you don't need Lar's protection now, so why do you still tie him to your side? Giving alms from above is disgusting. Ning Shu said, oh, so what? Dagger Merch was speechless. Ning Shu looked at Armor Pei Ji, who was hanging high on the side. Pei Ji raised his hand and said with a smile, I want you to be my user. Ning Shu sneered, although you are not a fallen weapon, you are much smarter than them. Fallen weapons will turn dark because of the hatred in their hearts, gnawing at the flesh of their users and suffering the pain of depravity for the rest of their lives. It feels good to turn dark, but you will be tortured forever. I'm guessing that your previous users have all died an unnatural death. Ning Shu looked at Armor Pei Ji. Pei Ji shook his head, this is the first time we met, it's not good to slander me like this. I am just a defensive weapon, I don't have any combat power. Ning Shu smiled, just now at the inn, when you talked to me, there were guests looking at me with sympathy and pity. Why would they pity me? Ning Shu asked. Because they know about you. Pei Ji clapped, you say it like it's true. You don't have to suffer the pain of turning dark, and you can still be very free. Only Dagger Merch would be stupid enough to pay with his own dark. Ning Shu sneered. Hearing Ning Shu's words, Lar stood in front of Ning Shu and looked at Pei Ji warily. So, you have never thought of forming a contract with my master? Pei Ji said with a smile, even if we can't form a contract now, we can still work together. I have to understand the character of my user. I am a free weapon, I only work with people temporarily. Most people know that I will not form a contract with others. Because everyone who contracts with you will die. That's right. I'm so disappointed in them. Pei Ji looked up at the sky. Ning Shu kicked Dagger Mu. Learn from your mistakes and be smarter. You don't have to eat your own contractor to succeed. There are many other ways to kill the contractor. You chose the stupidest way. Dagger Mu, what should they do now that he had turned black? Sometimes, you hate someone so much that you want to drink their blood and eat their flesh. Ning Shu looked at Armor Peggy. Perhaps this person was the one who had killed Lar and Nico. Armor Pei Ji stayed by Nicole's side. Perhaps he was tired of the relationship between Lar and Nicole, or perhaps Nicole disappointed Pei Ji, so he killed her directly. Earlier in the inn, Ning Shu had noticed that many people were looking at Pei Ji with a very subtle expression. It was a kind of longing and fear. Whoever had an armor like Pei Ji would have an additional layer of protection. They would have armor that could block attacks. Armor Pei Ji was the kind of weapon that humans admired. He had good innate conditions and enough strength. Killing people was all based on his own preferences because he had enough capital to be proud. If someone hurt him, he would kill the other party. Nicole should be a toy that Pei Ji saw. She followed him around and finally felt bored. He killed her directly and then began to wander the world. Of course, this was just Ning Shu's inner guess. When he was teased by Pei Ji in the inn, Ning Shu was also observing him. He was so relaxed to tease people, and no one came to trouble him afterward. It showed that Armor Pei Ji was a powerful person who did not need to be afraid of trouble. Pei Ji should be the one who was high and mighty. Leisurely, playing in the world, good or evil, it all depended on his mood. Even if a weak person was bullied in front of him, he could walk over without a change in his expression, even if someone asked him for help. The previous users disappointed him. They killed the users directly. They did not fall into darkness and did not have to endure the pain of darkness. What else could he say? Nicole was unlucky to meet this person. Ning Shu, it's all my fault for seeing through too much. Pei Ji snapped his fingers, you're a bit interesting girl. Why don't we try to get along? Ning Shu took a step toward Pei Ji and said with a smile, I also think you're interesting. Let's exchange ideas. Pei Ji took a few steps back, you seem to be hostile to me. Can I ask why? Because I'm very narrow-minded. I've just been teased by you 3 times. I have to get revenge. Ning Shu took another step toward Pei Ji. Pei Ji took a step back, since we can't reach an agreement, then goodbye. Pei Ji's figure suddenly disappeared in front of Ning Shu. Dagger Mu saw Pei Ji run away, and his face was full of black lines. He said as if he was asking for credit, Armor Pei Ji has another function, which is invisibility. It's very powerful. Did I let you talk too much? I saw it. Ning Shu released his spiritual power, trying to detect Armor Pei Ji's figure, but it really seemed to have disappeared. This guy hid really well. He used to follow Nicole, but he didn't know this guy could become invisible. He only knew that Pei Ji's defensive ability was one of the best among defensive weapons, but he didn't know it had an invisibility function. It was simply an assassination weapon. No wonder it could be ranked at the top of the weapon list. Nicole wasn't tempted by such a weapon. Without a contract, how could he hurt the noble heart of a weapon? He was more and more sure that this guy killed Nicole and Lar. A weapon that could be equipped with external weapons. He didn't know if this guy would still pester her. This was a big problem. Ning Shu turned around and kicked Dagger Mu. Look at the person you provoked. With your IQ, he's at least a few streets ahead of you. If there's a next time, I'll break you directly. No, this time I'll teach you a lesson. Ning Shu grabbed Dagger Mu on the ground. He grabbed his neck with force. Dagger Mu's face turned red, but he couldn't break free. He turned into a dagger. Ning Shu pulled the dagger into an arc with both hands. If he used a little more force, the dagger would break. Lar grabbed Ning Shu's wrist. Ning Shu let go of the dagger and threw it on the ground. Dagger Mu turned into his human form and looked at Ning Shu in horror. If it wasn't for Lar's face, I would have broken it. If I didn't give you something to eat last time, your soul would have been sucked away by the great sky-changing array. A soul like you full of resentment, hatred, and hatred is what the great sky-changing array likes. Have a conscience. If you want to hate the whole world, it's fine. Don't make trouble in front of me. Ning Shu was a little annoyed with Dagger Mu. Chapter 1653. A depraved weapon like Dagger Mu only had negative emotions in his heart. He only remembered what others had done to him. Using love to make the world a better place. Forget it. Make yourself a better place, and the world will be better. Don't make others a better place. Do you know your mistake? Ning Shu looked at Dagger Mu, who was hiding behind Lar. I failed this time. There will be a next time, and a time after that. I will make Lar leave you, a cruel woman. I will not be enslaved by you. Dagger Mu raised his neck and shouted at Ning Shu. Well, if you have the guts, don't hide behind Lar. Come to me. Ning Shu waved at Dagger Mu. Ning Shu and the others returned to the inn. When they walked in, they could still smell the stench. The innkeeper and the waiter looked at Ning Shu with resentment. Ning Shu pulled back his foot and turned to leave. He found a new place to stay. The money he paid for the previous room was compensation. Ning Shu found a new inn to stay in. Ning Shu was a little afraid that Armor Pei Ji would attack her in stealth mode. So, she released her power of the will at any time. Stealth meant that she could not see, but it did not mean that she had become heir. As long as her power of the will was activated, even if she could not see, she could clearly sense where Pei Ji was. Ning Shu did not know if Pei Ji would just let it go on a whim or come back to haunt her. Quest complete. Do you want to leave the quest world? 2333's voice sounded in Ning Shu's mind. Ning Shu was a little surprised. What about Armor Pei Ji? The client wants to return to her own world. That means your quest is complete. As for Armor Pei Ji, she can deal with it herself. 2333 said. Don't worry about it. Isn't it good to have an easy life? Oh, Ning Shu replied and called Lar over to her. Ning Shu lay on the bed and said to Lar, well, how should I put it? I might have to fuse with Nico. Do you know about personality fusion? We have dual personalities. Strictly speaking, this is an illness. Now, we have to get better. Due to fate, I was born, but we have to fuse again. Ning Shu spouted some nonsense. Lar lowered his head, then looked up and asked, are you going to disappear? I didn't disappear. I merged with Nicole. I'm just a part of Nicole's personality, an emotion, Ning Shu explained. Lars nodded. Mu the dagger excitedly asked, are you going to die? Ning Shu lifted the blanket and kicked Dagger Mu away. Get lost. Kicking the light bulb away, Ning Shu said to Lar, I'm entrusting Nicole to you. Be confident and brave. Love each other, love yourself, love each other, and don't hurt anyone else. That's the best kind of love. Ning Shu lay back on the bed, closed his eyes and said to 2333, "Let's go." "Wait." Lar grabbed Ning Shu's hand. Ning Shu opened his eyes and looked at Lar. Although it was a sad moment, Lar still couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. He asked, "Can the fusion be interrupted just like that?" Ning Shu said, "I'm just going to sleep. Maybe when I wake up, the fusion will be complete." Lar held Ning Shu's hand and gently kissed the back of it. Ning Shu smiled gently. "You're really like a knight." Ning Shu closed his eyes and returned to the system. He didn't feel so good. When he went through the planes, his whole soul felt like it was rolled into a ball and then stretched. It was so uncomfortable. It must be because his soul power was too weak that he felt so uncomfortable. It must be. Ning Shu collapsed on the sofa and began to absorb the soul power. When he finished, Ning Shu opened the status panel. Name, Ning Shu. Age, 27. Level, Super Quest Taker. Points card, 116/10 million points to 1 point card. Soul, 2 HP, 1 Wisdom, 3 Luck, 3 Charm, 1 MP, 2 Force, 4 Aptitude, 2 Faith, 54900 Merit, 17330 Soul Strength, 24 Authorization Ticket, 1 Law Understanding, none Honorable Titles, Goddess of War, Selfless Ancestor Items, Calm Aura, Calming Pill, Faith Aura, Amulet 4, Upgraded Amulet 2 Skills, 5th Ring Shooting Technique, Intermediate Close Combat Technique, Intermediate Martial Arts, Intermediate Poison Technique. Beginner Business Management Knowledge, Beginner Code Programming, Beginner Lawyer Skill, Sage Ghost Catching Skill, Beginner Cooking Skill, Intermediate Embroidery Skill. Aura, Blessing of the Empress, Model Worker Sister Chen Shi, Blessing of the Leader Aura Grass, Blessing of Lifelong Friend Miao Miao Miao. Blessing of the Savior Zhu Sun Yang, Blessing of the Founding Lady Chen Ermiai, Blessing of the Law Beauty Chen Ning, Blessing of the Blood Clan's Nemesis Jasmine, Blessing of the Transcending Race by San Yang, Blessing of the Brave Wang. Incompleted Nicole's Wish, Protect the Crossbow Lars from Death. Completed 100%. Obtained Reward, 5 points card, for attribute points, 60% soul strength, 2000 faith, including the accumulated points in the previous world. Obtained a Heart of Loyalty, 2000 merit points. Deducted 3 soul anchoring pills, 15 merit points. Limited to 1 use ticket. Oh, the reward for this mission was not bad. Who gave this Heart of Loyalty? Was it Lars the Crossbow? This was the first time Ning Shu received a blessing that was not from the person who gave it to him. The heart of true love, the heart of loyalty, these are very pure feelings. It is a kind of power. 2333 said. It is much better than the blessings that the person who gave it to him casually. It is a pure and unadulterated feeling. After 2333's explanation, Ning Shu felt that this thing might be something good. However, there were very few things that were absolutely pure in the world. There are also quest takers who received the heart of true love. It is a pure and beautiful feeling. That is very good. Ning Shu said with a smile. The more mature a person was, the harder it was for them to fall in love with someone. This was because the more mature a person was, the more they could tell if it was love or not. If they met someone, they would be lucky. If they did not meet someone, they would not force it. Even if they deliberately pursued the heart of true love, they would not be able to get it. Do you use your heart of loyalty? 2333 asked Ning Shu. I use it. Why wouldn't I? Ning Shu was casually lying on the sofa. She crossed her legs and played with her nails. If 2333 had any thoughts in his mind, he would reveal his fox tail. As soon as 2333 spoke, Ning Shu knew that he was after her things. He was after her heart of loyalty. 2333 asked, do you know how to use the heart of loyalty? I don't know. I just put it there for fun. I will know how to use it in the future. Ning Shu said casually. She was not in a hurry. Chapter 1654. After a while, he said to Ning Shu, I don't have any energy left. Give me another reason. Ning Shu took the rose from the coffee table and sniffed it. It smelled good. Then, he thought of what the armor Pei-ji had done and was caught off guard. He was disgusted. In the future, whenever he wanted to smell flowers, he would think of flowers that smelled like shit. Ning Shu put the flower back into the vase. Before I figure out what the heart of loyalty does, don't even think about fooling me into giving you something. Can you be more honest? Ning Shu rolled his eyes. 2333 said, actually, it's not that useful. I'm just asking. Ning Shu, aha. I can check it myself. It's not a secret. Ning Shu didn't argue with 2333 anymore and distributed his attribute points. Name, Ning Shu. Age, 27 level, Super Mission Taker points, 116,510 million points for 1 point. Soul, 2 HP, 11 Wisdom, 31 Luck, 31 Charm, 1 Spirit, 21 Martial Strength, 4 Aptitude, 2 Faith, 549002000 Merit, 1733019885 Soul Strength, 241 Authorization Ticket, None Law Understanding, None Pure Heart, Loyal Heart Items, Calm Aura, Calming Pill, Faith Aura, Amulet 4, Upgraded Amulet 2 Honorary Titles, Goddess of War, Selfless Ancestor Skills, 5th Ring Shooting Technique, Intermediate Close Combat Technique, Intermediate Martial Arts, Intermediate Poison Technique, Beginner Business Management Knowledge. Beginner Code Programming, Beginner Lawyer Skill, Sage Ghost Catching Skill, Beginner Cooking Skill, Intermediate Embroidery Skill. Aura, Mother of the World Empress Blessing, Model Worker Sister Chen Shi's Blessing, Leader Aura Grass Blessing, Lifelong Friend Miao Miao Miao's Blessing. Savior Zhu Sun Yang's Blessing, Founding Lady Chen Ermiai's Blessing, Beauty of the Law Chen Ning's Blessing, Blood Clan Nemesis Jasmine's Blessing, Transcending Race Communication by San Yang's Blessing, Braveheart Wang Ying's Blessing. After finishing these things, Ning Shu planned to go to the law space. Originally, Ning Shu wanted to take a nap before going, but he felt that he might fall asleep again if he went, so he decided not to go. Ding dong. The voice of the chat system rang out. Ning Shu sat back on the sofa and opened the chat system. Yes, it was a message from the Wenqing system. She felt that this girl had really picked the right time to do this. He asked me if you were back. 2333 said. Look at how good the system was at dealing with people. System 65892, dear, are you there? Ning Shu, yes, I am. System 65892, my mission enforcer wants to ask you, are you selling your brain? Ning Shu raised her eyebrows. Wenqing wanted to buy her brain. Ning Shu, it's not for sale. Not for sale. System 65892 sent a pitiful emoji, the price is negotiable. Merit points and faith points are fine too. Ning Shu asked, is your mission enforcer still in that plane? System 65892, yes, he is very busy now. The plane seems to be a bit out of control. He wants to buy your brain. Ning Shu propped up her chin and looked at the chat interface. The aliens were growing too fast and multiplying too fast. They were completely out of control. It didn't make sense at all. Ning Shu, he can use the brain. When the problem of the plane is solved, he will return it to me. I will not sell it. System 65892 took a while to reply, thank you. When the problem of the plane is solved, I will definitely return it to you. System 65892 sent a cute emoji and left the chat interface. Ning Shu stretched and sent a message to Mei Ziqing, are you still alive? Mei Ziqing, yes, I was wiped out. I just recovered now. Ning Shu, oh, I forgot that you failed the mission. You deserve to live with me. Mei Ziqing. I originally wanted to give you a world origin, but forget it. Ning Shu really wanted to slap himself. Don't say that. My mind is full of you now. Thinking that you must have suffered, my heart aches. Mei Ziqing, Ning Shu, you are really giving me the world origin. What element is it? Mei Ziqing, get lost. How can I give it to you for free? You should at least let me get some. It is the metal element of the world origin. It is the sharpest, the toughest, and the most yang element. I spent a lot of effort to get it. Ning Shu, oh, then how should we trade? We are acquaintances. Let's make it cheaper. Mei Ziqing, the metal element of the world origin is the hardest to get. The price fluctuates between 30,000 and 50,000. Ning Shu, 30 to 50,000 points. You don't have to give me more. Mei Ziqing, get lost. Why don't you go to heaven? It is the power of faith. Ning Shu cursed in his heart. 30 to 50,000 points of faith. If he bought it, the faith would be reset to 0. Mei Ziqing, do you want it? If you don't want it, I will take it to the trading hall. The metal element of the world origin is not easy to get. You can get more than 50,000 points of faith at the trading hall. I remember you said you were looking for it. Ning Shu made up his mind. Of course, he wanted it. If he missed it this time, he didn't know when the next opportunity would come. Ning Shu, how much is it? Mei Ziqing, 50,000. Ning Shu, 30,000. Mei Ziqing, 50,000. Ning Shu, then let's take the middle value. How about 40,000? Mei Ziqing, 50,000. Ning Shu, why are you so stubborn? Is this how you do business? Mei Ziqing, this is a friendship price. Go and ask around. The metal element of the world origin is the most expensive element. Ning Shu, alright, 50,000. Mei Ziqing, you feel wronged? I sold it to you at a cheap price. Ning Shu, it's my fault. Ning Shu transferred 50,000 points of faith to Mei Ziqing's account. He asked, do you see the faith? Mei Ziqing, I see it. It should be over soon. Ning Shu waited for a while. Something appeared in the system's inventory. Ning Shu took it out. It was a box about the size of a fist. The box was exquisite. Ning Shu opened it with anticipation. He didn't know how the metal element existed. Ning Shu opened the box, and in a flash, a sharp white light pierced through her soul. After piercing through her soul, the white light flew around the system space as if it wanted to rush out of the system space. It wanted to rush out of any sealed space. No matter what was in front of it, it was torn apart and destroyed. Chapter 1655. The metal element was an element that was indomitable and extremely destructive. In an instant, Ning Shu's system space was destroyed by the white light. Deep scratches appeared on the walls. Everything that could be destroyed was destroyed. It was a mess. Ning Shu was dumbfounded as an incomparably sharp energy gathered in her soul. Moreover, this white light shot towards the black hole of the soul pearl. This white light was like an extremely sharp sword light that wanted to cut the black hole. How could this be? If the black hole swallowed the metal element world's origin, she would cry her eyes out. 50,000 faith power was gone. If the metal element world's origin destroyed the black hole, she would die. This thing had used up a lot of her effort and time. Ning Shu grabbed the peerless martial art and blocked in front of the black hole. She opened the peerless martial art and let the metal element world's origin rush into the peerless martial art. There were two types of world origin inside that should be able to affect and merge with each other. This thing couldn't be left in the system space. It was too destructive. Otherwise, the system space would be destroyed. Ning Shu raised the peerless martial art and aimed it at the sharp light. The sharp light rushed into the peerless martial art. The peerless martial art shook violently and left Ning Shu's hand. It flew around in the system space. Ning Shu looked on in horror. She was really worried that the peerless martial art would be destroyed. What if it was destroyed? The peerless martial art was her hope to build a world. Ning Shu could only look at the peerless martial art flying around in the system space. If there was a water element world origin, it would be extremely soft. It would be able to reduce the metal element's sharpness. It wouldn't be so shocking. However, the peerless martial art shouldn't have any problems with fire, right? Ning Shu felt something sucking her soul from the back of her head. She turned around and saw the black hole. It was the black hole of the soul pearl. Ning Shu quickly moved away from the black hole to prevent herself from being sucked in. Ning Shu hid in the corner. She looked at the peerless martial art jumping up and down. Her heart was about to collapse. When the movement of the peerless martial art was no longer that great, it fell to the ground. Ning Shu hurriedly walked over. The peerless martial art was like a fish on a chopping board, jumping up and down. Ning Shu nudged the peerless martial art with his foot. After confirming that the peerless martial art would not bounce around anymore, he picked it up. His mental strength invaded the peerless martial art to see the situation inside. It was still a boundless gray space. With the addition of an attribute, there were no other changes, but the space had an additional temperature. In the past, it had always felt desolate, but now, there was a kind of warmth. The fusion of the metal and fire elements gave this boundless world some warmth. Ning Shu let out a long breath. His entire body went limp as he sat on the ground. His soul was in pain. His soul had been pierced through by the metal world's origin. If she had a physical body, it would have been game over by now. Ning Shu looked at the chaotic system space, sighed, and began to clean up. 2333 also began to slowly repair the damage caused by the metal world's origin on the walls of the system space. After cleaning up, Ning Shu lay on the sofa, hugged the peerless martial art, and opened the chat system. Ning Shu, why didn't you tell me what to pay attention to? My system space has become a mess. I'm going to apply for a loan-insured account. Mei Ziqing, didn't I tell you that the metal element is the most masculine and masculine element? Besides, I'm a lovelorn woman. Even if I didn't forget to tell you, I'm still worthy of your forgiveness. Ning Shu, this was revenge. Ning Shu, oh right, I forgot. You still owe me a privilege ticket and 15 merit points. Give it back to me. Mei Ziqing, even so, Ning Shu was still quite happy. Finally, he had found another world's origin. It had been a long time since he found a world's origin. He could exchange 50,000 points of faith for a world's origin. Ning Shu felt that it was a good deal. Ning Shu, thank you for this. But why didn't you keep the world's origin for yourself? It was too hard to find a world's origin. It was pure luck to find one because you might not find one even after going through many planes. Mei Ziqing was now a super mission enforcer. She should be thinking about building a world. After all, only those who could build a world would be considered a true powerhouse. They would not be killed at any time. Wen Xing was busy working for a plane. Mei Ziqing's lover, Yu Qing, took a shortcut to integrate the plane's heavenly axiom. What did she want? It was to have the right to speak and fight for her own rights. Mei Ziqing, do you think I don't want to build a world? But I haven't found a suitable medium to build a world yet. A world's origin alone isn't enough to build a world. Instead of wasting it, I might as well solve the current problem first. Ning Shu, what problem? Mei Ziqing, it's a problem with the laws. You know it's not easy to understand the laws, but with the senior's understanding and experience, you need to buy them with merit points of faith. Ning Shu, oh, I see. Is the law understanding very expensive? Mei Ziqing, yes. My liver hurts. Ning Shu, it's not easy for everyone. Ning Shu closed the chat interface. His soul was tired. He hugged the book and fell asleep. After waking up, Ning Shu placed the Peerless Martial Arts book on the bookshelf, and then stood at the entrance to the law space. After his soul was ravaged, Ning Shu stood in the city of water. Ning Shu found a place to sit down and started to understand the law of water. He kept telling himself that he was water, water, water. Mei Ziqing said that if he wanted to understand the law, he had to integrate with the law to master it. If he had the predecessors' understanding and stood on their shoulders, he might be able to see through the fog. However, Ning Shu was now a pauper. He did not have enough faith points to buy this thing. He used all his faith points to buy the world's origin. To prevent people from stepping on him while he slept, Ning Shu found a spot against the wall. He did not want to lie on the ground the moment he fell asleep. Ning Shu felt that he could not be so dispirited. He wanted to sleep every time. He risked his life to come to sleep. Ning Shu sat cross-legged on the ground and started to cultivate. This time, he did not fall asleep. He was in a state where he seemed to be asleep, but he was not. When he woke up, he was in a daze. Ning Shu's heart was crumbling. Looking at other people covered in layers of water vapor, he sighed silently. Ning Shu stood up and stretched. He went to the restaurant and ordered some food. He ate food that could repair his soul. His soul was already weak. After being penetrated by the metal element, it became even weaker. Ning Shu could only rely on food to nourish her body. Although the effect was not great, no matter how small a mosquito's leg was, it was still meat. Ning Shu used a fork to stab a pastry. He listened to the mission enforcer's gossip. Chapter 1656. The melodious sound of the guzheng was playing in the restaurant, and the people in the restaurant were talking softly. Ning Shu felt that these spaces were very peaceful. Regardless of whether it was the virtual space or the law space, fighting was prohibited in these places. Once a fight broke out, there would be cruel suppression. However, the people who had been doing missions until now were not impulsive youngsters. They only knew how to fight. Fighting was not necessary to solve problems. Ning Shu sipped his drink and observed the mission enforcers in the restaurant with his hand under his chin. 1,000 people had 1,000 faces. Mission enforcer society was the same as human society. Every day, there would be many mission enforcers in the hundreds of millions of planes, and in one day, many mission enforcers would disappear for various reasons. This was a process of elimination. Only with enough luck and strength could one make it through. Speaking of which, Ning Shu felt that his luck was not bad. Perhaps there would be people who were more unlucky than him. With comparison, there would be happiness. At least now he had 3 world origins. He was just short of 2. Just 2 more and he would be able to successfully construct a world. As soon as she thought of this, Ning Shu trembled with excitement. It was too difficult. With a world, at least his life could be guaranteed. Although he did not have as many worlds as the silver-haired man and fragrant wind man. But with a world, if he had a suitable medium, he could construct another world. For now, survival was more important. All the mission enforcers had dodged the school doctor's 3 shots. There was no mercy. If they were wrong, they would be killed on the spot. There was no need to appeal, not even a chance to refute. It was a very cruel organization. Therefore, only when one was strong would they not be treated like this. As long as one was strong enough, they would have the right to speak. If Mei Ziqing's lover, Yuqing, had a world that belonged to her, and there were hundreds of millions of living beings with the same fate as him, then their fates would be tied to him. He would not be killed. At most, he would be punished. This was strength. Ning Shu stopped comprehending the law of water. Instead, he returned to the system space and opened the chatting system to send a message to Mei Ziqing. Ning Shu, if you have any world origins in the future, consider me first. The price is negotiable. Mei Ziqing, go, I already lost money selling it to you this time. You want me to sell it to you at a loss again? Scram, Ning Shu, a lovelorn woman was so scary. Ning Shu, how can I let you suffer a loss? The price is negotiable. It will definitely be slightly higher than the market price. Mei Ziqing, do you have enough power of faith? These things are not cheap. Ning Shu really didn't have any, but he could slowly accumulate them. Buying the world origin this time had already emptied her family's coffers. His heart ached. He didn't manage to gather all of the world's source energy, and he didn't have enough faith power to buy comprehension of the laws. Both sides were difficult, but mission enforcers had an advantage, and that was time. They didn't have much of anything else, but they had a lot of time. As long as it could be solved with time, it wouldn't be a problem. At worst, he would spend time searching for the world's source energy. At worst, he would spend time comprehending the laws. It was a simple matter. Unknowingly, the problem was solved one by one. Mei Ziqing, if I find the origin of the world, I will give it to you. If you don't have the power of faith, then forget it. Ning Shu, okay, you must leave it to me. It was better to have two people searching than one. If Mei Ziqing had the world's origin in his hands, he would prioritize her. Her progress in constructing the world would be much faster. Ning Shu, how many world sources do you have? Mei Ziqing, I found two. One was of the metal element, and the other was of the fire element. She already had the fire element. Mei Ziqing, I might not be doing missions for the time being. In my current state, I can't do missions well. You might not be able to wait for the world's origin. Ning Shu, although I want to comfort you, I really don't know how. Although you lost your spouse, there are still millions of people waiting to be connected to you. Mei Ziqing, don't talk to me. Scram, every time Ning Shu heard Mei Ziqing say scram, he felt like she was roaring at him. After chatting with Mei Ziqing for a while, Ning Shu felt like he was on steroids. He wanted to do missions. Maybe there would be a world's origin in the next world, and the world after that. Ning Shu drank a bowl of poisonous chicken soup and opened the exchange store to exchange for fasting pills and some basic medicine. He had to stay alive to complete missions. Ning Shu closed the store and looked at the black hole on the wall. He asked 2333, do you think the black hole got bigger? The black hole that was the size of a grown man's fist was now the size of a baby's head. 2333 was confused, is it? Are you blind? How could he not see such an obvious change? What caused the problem? Is it because of the metal element? Ning Shu guessed. 2333 thought for a while and said, maybe the metal element destroyed the system space, and I used some of my energy to repair it. Without my power to suppress these two things, this happened. Ning Shu, God knows what happened, what a headache. He didn't know when he would be able to get rid of this black hole. Look, don't you think the black hole got bigger? Ning Shu stared at the black hole and said to 2333 in shock. 2333. You must be hallucinating. Ning Shu rubbed his eyes. It must be a hallucination. Ning Shu scratched his head and asked 2333, based on your experience, what do you think is going on with this thing? This thing was fused with the soul orb, which allowed it to travel through any realm and summon creatures from other realms. It also had the boundary stone. After fusing with it for so long, it still hadn't finished fusing. The black hole was getting smaller and smaller, and now it was getting bigger and bigger. What the fuck? Ning Shu stared at the black hole for a while and felt that it was getting bigger. But he also felt that it was an illusion. The black hole was spinning slowly, and it made him dizzy after a while. Ning Shu sighed, forget it. I'll go do the mission first. You pay more attention to this black hole. Hopefully, when the mission came back, her system space would still be there and not be swallowed by the black hole. 2333 sent Ning Shu to another realm. Ning Shu slowly fused into a body. He felt that his body was very heavy, and his head was buzzing. Ning Shu opened his eyes, but it was only a slit. His eyelids were swollen and covered with mucus. Ning Shu moved his body. His body was very stiff, and his neck made a cracking sound. Only then did he realize that he was sitting on the floor, lying on the sofa. Ning Shu wanted to move, but his head was buzzing and his stomach was churning. He almost vomited. Did he have a concussion? Ning Shu didn't dare to make any big movements. He raised his hand and wiped the mucus from the corner of his eyes. Chapter 1657. Ning Shu rubbed his eyes. When his hand touched his face, he instantly felt a burning pain. His face was swollen. Ning Shu received the plot in his heart. The plot of this world was very simple. It was a woman who endured domestic violence for many years. Women were princesses regardless of age, but a woman who was abused was like a princess whose crystal shoe was crushed. Fate was like a crystal shoe that was crushed. The client was called Huang Jing. She had been married for nearly 10 years. Marrying her husband was decided by her parents. Her family directly registered the marriage with the household register. Her parents said that Ma Yongjun was a good man. He looked gentle and would definitely dote on his wife in the future. Yes, gentle. He didn't dote on his wife, but he had the strength to hit his wife. After Huang Jing got married, she realized that her husband was lazy. He smoked, drank, and played cards. Usually, he would work part-time. Sometimes, he would work at the construction site to earn money for gambling, drinking, and smoking. And he was violent. If he was unhappy, he would hit Huang Jing. Even when Huang Jing was pregnant, Ma Yongjun would hit her. Every time, he would be beaten up. When Huang Jing was pregnant, she ran to her parents' house every day and cried in front of her mother. Huang Jing's mother only said that this was how women lived their lives. She just had to bear with it. She just had to bear with it. Besides, they had children now. Because living in a small county, divorce wasn't a glorious thing. Every time she ran back to her parents' house, Ma Yongjun would come to take Huang Jing back. Huang Jing's parents would ask their son-in-law not to hit their daughter. Ma Yongjun agreed in front of his mother-in-law and father-in-law, but when he returned home, he would hit her even more fiercely. Huang Jing also learned her lesson. Other than during festivals, she didn't go home. And when Ma Yongjun was drunk, Huang Jing didn't even go near him. After Huang Jing gave birth to 2 daughters in a row, Ma Yongjun started to treat Huang Jing with disdain. He hit Huang Jing even harder. Whenever there was a problem, he would hit Huang Jing with his fist. Without a son, in the eyes of the ancestors, he was an unfilial person. And Ma Yongjun never took money home. When he had some money, he would treat his friends to hot pot, barbecue, drink, and play cards. And Huang Jing would spend 1 yuan in half. She saved all kinds of money. One of them spent money like water, spending whatever little money he had. Huang Jing, on the other hand, was so frugal that it made people speechless. Before Ning Shu came over this time, something had happened. Huang Jing had found a job as an employee of a small marriage agency. It was to arrange for unmarried men and women to go on blind dates. According to the requirements of both men and women, they would compare various conditions and choose suitable men and women to go on blind dates. Because of this job, Ma Yongjun heard rumors that Huang Jing was meeting other men outside. The most obvious characteristic of a domestic abuser was that he had a strong desire to control, and his self-esteem was as high as the sky. He could do the same thing, and he would never think that he was wrong. However, if his wife, child, or the person in a weaker position in the family were wrong, then it was wrong. Huang Jing had tolerated Ma Yongjun for almost 10 years, from their marriage until now. Not only did Ma Yongjun hit her, but he also hit her child. Once, his eldest daughter, Ma Lanlan, was serving Ma Yongjun a bowl of rice and accidentally knocked it over. Ma Yongjun grabbed his eldest daughter and slapped her face with his chopsticks. A 7 or 8-year-old child went to class with bruises all over his face. Even though it was a mediation, Ma Yongjun promised not to hit his wife, but he hit her even more fiercely after that. Dirty linen shouldn't be aired in public, but he still dared to spread the news. Huang Jing wanted to stab the knife into Ma Yongjun's heart several times, but when she thought of her 2 children, she held it in. She hated herself for being weak. Sometimes, she wanted to commit suicide, but when she thought of her 2 children, if she died, their lives would be even more miserable in the future. Huang Jing was in pain. She was in so much pain that she didn't know what to do. Divorce? Ma Yongjun would definitely not divorce. Every time she mentioned it, Ma Yongjun would hit her once. He wanted to hit her until she didn't have the courage to mention divorce. In a society that claimed to be equal between men and women, but in this small county, divorced women would always be criticized behind their backs. Huang Jing was so angry that her whole body trembled. 10 years of marriage made Huang Jing feel like she was struggling in hell. Huang Jing's wish was to protect her daughter. She wanted to get rid of Ma Yongjun. Ma Yongjun was like a nail that was nailed into her bones. She couldn't get rid of him no matter what. In Ma Yongjun's words, "I gave you the gift money for your parents. You're my wife. You're mine for the rest of your life." If it was a domineering CEO who loved you deeply, saying that you're mine for the rest of your life sounded romantic. But to a woman who had been abused for many years, this was more terrifying than any vicious curse. Ning Shu wiped the feces from the corner of his eyes. Because his eyes were injured, his eyeballs kept crying, forming dry yellow crystals. Ning Shu sighed silently in his heart. This Huang Jing must have destroyed the universe in her previous life to meet a scumbag like Ma Yongjun in this life. She was simply a 1-in-a-million quality item. When a man hit a woman, everything was nothing in his heart. His moral bottom line was infinitely low. Ning Shu even suspected that this scumbag would sell his daughter in the future. He didn't raise his wife and children at home. When he had some money, he went out to fool around. When he didn't have money, he went to the small supermarket nearby to buy cigarettes and alcohol. When he had money, he would return it. Ning Shu slowly moved to sit on the old sofa. The small living room was in a mess. The chairs and benches were all over the floor. There was a big battle last night. Ma Yongjun slammed the door and left. He hadn't returned yet. He directly treated his home as a hotel. Ning Shu stretched his legs, sat cross-legged, and began to cultivate. His head was dizzy, and the world was spinning. He wanted to vomit. Ning Shu formed a seal and set up a young gathering formation. He began to cultivate. The spiritual energy in the modern world was very little. It seemed that there wasn't enough star power, and he could only absorb the power of the fire sun. However, the power of the fire sun had a flaw. It was that its temper was a little bad. Ning Shu really wanted to rush in front of Ma Yongjun and let him taste the pain of having his tendons and bones broken. Why are they always oppressing women? Could it be that men will be very happy if women live miserably and miserably? No, how could a selfish person think of this? For himself, he didn't even care about his family. For himself, he could sacrifice his family in exchange for his own benefits. For his own happiness, he could hurt his family and let his loved ones suffer. What a scumbag. Huang Jing's marriage was decided by her parents. At that time, Ma Yongjun was a good choice. He had a car and a house. His parents were dead. The car was a bicycle. The house was in a small county. It was only a 70 to 80 square meter house. When she heard that it was going to be demolished, she heard that it was going to be subsidized, blah blah blah. In addition, her family and her husband's family were dozens of miles away. The news wasn't very fast. Before marrying Ma Yongjun, Huang Jing knew nothing about him. Chapter 1658. Ma Yongjun and Huang Jingjing's marriage was completely based on the matchmaker's words. In addition, Ma Yongjun's gift money was not small. Huang Jing also had a younger brother. It was time for him to prepare for a wife. With this gift money, her parents could find a wife for her brother. This was a very common behavior. They would sell their daughter and marry her off. Then, the money would be used to find a wife for their son. Then, other families with daughters would also marry their daughters to his family. This was a circle. Huang Jing was unlucky and met a scumbag. Moreover, it was a domestic violence man. He was suspicious and said that she was unfaithful. He would beat her up for no reason. Domestic violence men should die. Nearly 30% of women had suffered domestic violence. This was a common phenomenon. In a family, the strong and the weak were obvious. They would vent on the weak members by beating, insulting, and emotional violence. Men were naturally more impulsive and irritable than women. Moreover, they had an absolute advantage in physical strength. Thus, the strong and weak roles were created. In addition, since ancient times, men were superior to women, and family scandals should not be aired in public. Many families still maintained and tacitly agreed to this idea. Even if there was domestic violence, most of the time, they would treat it as an ordinary family dispute and not dare to say anything. Many men were under a lot of psychological pressure because of their work and setbacks outside. There was no way to vent outside, and they did not know how to adjust their emotions. Therefore, they often vented their anger on their wife or children, punching and kicking them. They treated their wife and children as their own property and ignored their autonomy. Conceited men had a sense of superiority at home and thought that they had raised the family. They thought that they had brought happiness to their wife and children, and that their wife should obey them. Under the influence of this mentality, if their wife and children were disrespectful to them, they would feel very uncomfortable and use violence to conquer them. Men with low self-esteem could not tolerate women being stronger than them. Therefore, they flaunted their superiority at home and beat their wives behind closed doors to hide and balance their inferiority. Whether it was conceited, inferiority, or men who did not know how to adjust their emotions, they would greet their women and children with their fists. Therefore, when a girl looked for a boyfriend, she should look for a normal, cheerful boyfriend. She should not look for a gloomy and difficult man. Also, she should not try to use her gentleness to resolve these problems. Domestic violence was addictive, and it would get worse each time. This time, it was a slap. Perhaps the next time, it would be a choke. You would not even know when you would die. Maybe after the event, the man will kneel down and beg you, regret, promise. Because of a little bit of love, this is not love. Even if it is love, don't ruin your life for such a little bit of love. Moreover, there was a 50% chance that domestic violence men would cheat on their wives. They didn't care if they caused physical and mental pain to their wives. Could it be that they would still be loyal to their wives? Sometimes, his gentleness could be described as condoning domestic violence. Men with addictions such as gambling, drinking, and taking drugs should not be kept. These addictive substances could distort a person's personality, change their character, and make them irritable. A man with an irritable personality who would resort to violence at the slightest disagreement would only make things worse. Moreover, he was a man who did it at home. He had low EQ and no moral bottom line. Bipolar disorder, depression, schizophrenia, menopausal psychosis, all of these could lead to domestic violence. Don't challenge yourself to find a difficult boyfriend, because the consequences may be bloody. After cultivating for a while, Ning Shu stopped. His body felt better, but he still felt dizzy. It was already 6 o'clock in the morning. It was time to make breakfast. After letting the two children eat breakfast, they sent the elder daughter to the primary school and the younger daughter to the kindergarten. When Ning Shu stood up, his body swayed twice. She must let Ma Yongjun taste the pain of having his tendons and bones dislocated. Come on, let's hurt each other. Let's see who dies from the pain first. Ning Shu went to the kitchen to wash the rice and put it in the pot. Because his face was swollen, he couldn't go out to buy youtiao on the street. Ning Shu could only scoop up some pickles, cut them, and stir-fry them with oil. After that, he stir-fried some side dishes. These vegetables were no longer fresh. When he bought them, they were not fresh because they were cheap. The next day, they would turn yellow. Ning Shu sat on a small stool and plucked the yellow leaves. She was dizzy and uncomfortable. It must be a concussion. She went to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. Half of her face was swollen. Moreover, her back was very painful. When she lifted her clothes to take a look, there was a very long bruise. It was because Ma Yongjun had smashed it with a chair. Oh, my God. Ning Shu took some anti-inflammatory medicine. Ning Shu just felt the pain on her body. Ning Shu wanted to kill Ma Yongjun, not to mention Huang Jing, who had endured nearly 10 years. Sometimes, when you wanted to do something, you would find that there was fucking resistance around you. The whole world stood on the opposite side. The more you struggled, the deeper you sank, struggling in the swamp. Huang Jing wanted to kill Ma Yongjun, but she couldn't let the children lose their father. Their mother was a murderer. The two children would be looked at strangely from now on. The more concerns there were, the more restrictions there were. But it was basically impossible to take the normal route. Even if they mediated, when they returned home and closed the door, who knew what happened inside? The misfortunes of life followed one after another and were dragged into the whirlpool. The water in the pot boiled and overflowed. Ning Shu stood up. She got up too quickly. Ning Shu staggered and quickly supported herself against the wall. Then, she slowly moved to the pot, opened the lid, and stirred it with a spoon. After stir-frying the side dishes, Ning Shu went into the house to call her two daughters. Lon Lon, wake up. Ning Shu gently patted her elder daughter's face. Ma Lon Lon opened her eyes and saw Ning Shu's swollen face. Dad hit you again. Ning Shu's face was pale as he dressed his two daughters. The two children sat at the dining table. The atmosphere was very silent. Both of them lowered their heads. Ning Shu scooped a bowl of porridge for each of them. Eat. I'll send you to school later. Ma Lon Lon said, I can go by myself. Mom, you don't have to send me. Ning Shu said, I'll send you to the school gate. I won't go in. Ma Lon Lon probably didn't want her classmates to see her mother's swollen face. Although her classmates knew that her mother was often beaten by her father, she still didn't want others to see it. It was a child's pride. Ma Lon Lon nodded. Mom, you should go to the hospital. Ning Shu nodded. She definitely had to go for an examination. The younger daughter, Ma Shuang Shuang, ate everywhere. Ning Shu also had to feed her. After the meal, Ning Shu felt that his head hurt more. It was so bitter. After tidying up, Ning Shu went to the bedroom to find a mask, a headscarf, and sunglasses. These were all prepared by the original owner. Because he was often beaten, he always had to have equipment to cover his face. It was the same as preparing an umbrella at home. Chapter 1659. When others asked, Huang Jing always said that she fell. Well, she fell on her face every time. Every time, there would be 5 finger marks. Ning Shu put on a mask. The mask made her face hurt. She wrapped her head with a silk scarf and put on sunglasses. She looked like an Arab woman who had to wear a black scarf when she went out. Ning Shu rode a bicycle and took the two children to school. She stopped not far from the gate of the elementary school. She didn't get close to the gate and said to Ma Lanlan, "Go in. Mom will watch you go in." Ma Lanlan got off the bicycle. Ning Shu looked at her old school bag and said, "When the holidays come, Mom will take you to buy a new school bag, new stationery, and new clothes." Ma Lanlan opened her eyes wide and looked at Ning Shu in surprise. She quickly asked, "Really, Mom?" Ning Shu wanted to laugh, but it pulled her wound. She could only say, "Of course." "Mom, I want to buy a dress too," Ma Shuangshuang said softly. "Buy them all." Ma Lanlan happily entered the school gate. Ning Shu looked at Ma Lanlan's back inside. The sisters hadn't bought anything new all year. The clothes were all given by others. One from the East family, and the other from the West family. If others didn't want it, she would tell Huang Jing that the clothes could be worn by her children. Clothes, school bags, stationery, and so on, she would use them if she could. Ma Lanlan had told Huang Jing more than once that she didn't want to wear the clothes that others had worn. She didn't want to use the things that others had used. At school, some classmates would say that the clothes were mine. They were old and didn't want Ma Lanlan to wear them. Children's social life was even crueler. Every time Huang Jing heard her children say that, they always said that the family didn't have money and that the things could still be used. This was originally something that didn't cost much, but she and her child ended up in such a miserable state. Huang Jing lived in panic every day. Her husband never gave money to the family. All the livelihood of the family depended on her. Not only was her husband unreliable, but he also beat people. Under this mentality, Huang Jing's heart was full of insecurity. She tried to save money. She was afraid that if she spent a penny more, there would be no rice to cook tomorrow. Even when he was on the verge of death, he was startled to sit up, and the rice pot at home was almost empty. There wasn't a day that he wasn't anxious. After sending his daughter to the kindergarten teacher, Ning Shu went to the hospital for an examination. Also, prescribed some medicine. Ning Shu smiled coldly. "It's fun to beat people up, but the consequences are very serious." Domestic violence men were worse than those who prioritized love above all else. At the very least, people wouldn't lay their hands on their loved ones. However, this kind of scum only dared to lay their hands on their loved ones. Even if they were to choose, they would choose the weaker members of the family, such as women and children. Scum, what a scum. According to the doctor, there were contusions of cartilage tissue on his face, and he had a moderate concussion. Ning Shu deliberately exaggerated the severity of the symptoms of a concussion. He was supposed to be hospitalized, but Ning Shu supported himself against the hospital wall and insisted that he didn't need to be hospitalized. The doctor prescribed some medicine and told Ning Shu to rest well. Huang Jing was basically a regular in the hospital. When he returned home, Ning Shu found a paper box in the closet. This box was filled with injury reports. This was only when the injuries were serious. Usually, if it wasn't serious, he would just have to bear with it. There was a thick stack of injury reports. Ning Shu looked at these reports one by one. There were all kinds of injuries. And this time, she was scalded. Ma Yongjun directly poured hot food on her body. This body was already full of holes. And sometimes, Ma Yongjun would even greet Huang Jing's private places, such as her butt, so that Huang Jing would be too embarrassed to go to the hospital for an examination. Some of the injury reports were even torn up by Ma Yongjun. Sometimes, when Huang Jing couldn't take it anymore, she would take these things to the neighborhood committee or the Women's Federation. Ma Yongjun knew that these things were bad for him, so he would destroy them. Ning Shu put away these receipts and injury reports and found a hidden place to hide them. These were all evidence. Ning Shu took out a medicine bottle and applied some medicine on his face. This face, born beautiful, was hated. That bastard Ma Yongjun always hit her face. I'll definitely let you have a taste of the power of the broken bones and tendons. After putting away the things, Ning Shu rushed to the marriage agency to work. The reason why he came here was that he could get a commission if he got a couple, and it was very generous. Huang Jing needed money to raise a child. She needed money. But so far, she hadn't done a single deal. The customers were not satisfied. Huang Jing was also a clumsy person. As a matchmaker, she relied on her mouth. Even a scumbag like Ma Yongjun could make a flower out of a flower. In the end, she didn't earn any money. Instead, she was beaten up by Ma Yongjun. The reason was that Huang Jing went to see a man. It was normal to arrange for the man and woman to meet each other. Domestic violence men like to be paranoid and doubt the other party's loyalty. They liked to exaggerate things and distort the facts. Ning Shu felt that he might not be able to continue this job. Ning Shu went to his seat. There was already a customer waiting for him. Ning Shu apologized and said, "What do you want from your other half?" It was very strange to wear sunglasses and a mask in the room. Ning Shu had to take it off, revealing a swollen face. "Customer," Ning Shu said calmly, "I fell. When I went downstairs, I accidentally fell." This was actually a good excuse. Anyone with a bit of insight wouldn't ask. This customer was a woman in her 40s. She was dressed fashionably and had come back from a big city. She wasn't very beautiful and had the aura of a prostitute. She said that she was old and was coming back to get married. She came to the marriage agency. Ning Shu asked, "What do you want from your future partner?" The female customer thought for a moment and said, "He's handsome, has long legs, and has a good temperament. He's better than Li Bai in literature and Bruce Lee in martial arts. It's not a problem for him to make money and support the family. He's good at all kinds of work and doesn't stick to me. He has the domineering aura of a CEO and the gentleness of a spare tire." Ning Shu said without changing his expression, "He's not human. Change your request." Female customer, "Oh, then he's alive." Ning Shu, why else would people say that blind dates were strange? The morning passed just like that. It was time for Ning Shu to pick up the two children for lunch and send them to school after lunch. He had to do laundry and cook in one day. The children had to go to school 6 times a day. When Ning Shu left at noon, the boss of the marriage agency called Ning Shu over and said that Ning Shu wasn't suitable for this job. Not to mention that he was always bruised and swollen, he couldn't even do business here. The boss gave him a guaranteed salary. Ning Shu wasn't surprised at all that he would be fired. Huang Jing wasn't a very smart person. After years of domestic violence, she looked extremely miserable. Chapter 1660. Huang Jing was not suitable for this kind of work that required both sides and could be ruthless. Huang Jing was interested in the commission, but it was useless if she couldn't get it. Ning Shu took the money and left. Moreover, Huang Jing had always been against this job. As long as one party liked the other party would pay for the middleman to make it happen. If it was successful, the money would not be small. And the middleman would use all means to make it happen, regardless of the conditions and character of the party who paid the money. As for whether she would be happy in the future, it was none of her business. Ning Shu went to the market to buy some vegetables. The vegetables were much cheaper as it was near noon. Ning Shu bought some pork ribs to stew after receiving her salary today. When she looked in the mirror in the morning, she found that her body was really sallow and thin. She was already miserable, and now she had to abuse herself with food. "Let's eat first. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it." With her skills, wouldn't she be able to survive? After buying the vegetables, Ning Shu went to the school to pick up the children. He first went to the kindergarten to pick up Ma Shuangshuang, and then went to the school gate to wait for Ma Lanlan. Ma Lanlan stood at the school gate and waved to Ning Shu with a smile on her face. Obviously, Ning Shu promised to buy her new things in the morning, and now she was happy. Ning Shu pushed the cart over, and Ma Lanlan sat in the back seat. Ning Shu shouted, "Sit tight. Let's go." Ning Shu stepped on the pedals, and Ma Lanlan behind him grabbed Ning Shu's clothes. Ma Shuangshuang sitting in front giggled. Ning Shu couldn't help laughing. Back home, Ma Yongjun sat on the sofa, drinking tea, leaning on the sofa, listening to the radio with his eyes closed. He was very leisurely. When the two children saw Ma Yongjun, they immediately lowered their heads and hid behind Ning Shu. "What have you been doing? You haven't cooked yet. Do you want me to starve?" Ma Yongjun opened his eyes and looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu gently pushed the back of the two children and said, "Go back to your room and play. Mommy is going to cook." Ma Lanlan held her sister's hand and walked close to the wall, not daring to get close to Ma Yongjun. Ma Yongjun glanced at his two daughters. With just a glance, Ma Lanlan trembled in fear and pulled her younger sister back to the room. Back then, Ma Yongjun had beaten Ma Lanlan until her face was purple. Ning Shu went to the kitchen to cook. Just now, he glanced at Ma Yongjun's face. Ma Yongjun had the face of a domestic abuser. Ning Shu had been a Maoshan Taoist priest before. Although he was not proficient in the art of physiognomy, he could still tell. Ma Yongjun's forehead was narrow and flat. His cheekbones were high and shaped like knives. His eyes were protruding and his eyebrows were messy. It was said that a general's forehead could run a horse carriage. A person with a narrow forehead would not be very broad-minded and would not be able to tolerate others. Moreover, their luck was not very smooth. If they were in a bad mood, it was inevitable that they would vent their anger on others. People with high cheekbones were usually mean on the inside. If their faces were fleshless and shaped like a knife, they were usually ungrateful. People with protruding eyes and messy eyebrows. People with protruding eyes almost jumped out of their eye sockets when they were angry. Their main character was irritable and had low self-control. It was easy for them to fight. People with messy eyebrows were easy to distinguish right from wrong. They were unreasonable and would punch and kick indiscriminately. In short, Ma Yongjun had the face of a bad guy. His face was full of meat. At first glance, it was a bad face. Ning Shu had originally bought ribs. Since Ma Yongjun was back, Ning Shu naturally did not know how to cook. In the end, these things were all in Ma Yongjun's stomach. The two children did not have any oil in their stomachs. Ma Yongjun ate and drank outside, so they would not let Ma Yongjun eat. Ning Shu cooked two light side dishes. When Ma Yongjun was on the table, his expression was not good. He picked up his chopsticks and put them down again. As soon as he put down his chopsticks, the two children also put down their chopsticks. The atmosphere was very solemn. Just this. Ma Yongjun was picky. Eating this kind of tasteless dish made him angry. "Wow!" The younger daughter, Ma Shuangshuang, cried. Ma Yongjun said impatiently, "Why are you crying? What's there to cry about, little girl?" Ma Yongjun said as he took out a small strawberry hairpin from his pocket and threw it to the younger daughter, Ma Shuangshuang. Ma Shuangshuang sobbed, took the hairpin, and held it in her hand. But the elder daughter, Ma Lanlan, did not. Ma Lanlan looked at Ma Yongjun, but Ma Yongjun did not look at her. Although they were two girls, Ma Yongjun was a little nicer to the younger daughter. He was not good to the elder daughter. He favored the younger daughter. Ma Lanlan's eyes were shining with tears. "Go and cook a few more dishes," Ma Yongjun said to Ning Shu. "Is this for pigs? We have always been eating pig food. Why can't you eat it?" Ning Shu said lightly. Ning Shu picked up the bowl, put some food in the two children's bowls, and said, "Go and eat in the house." Ma Lanlan took the bowl and left, ignoring Ma Shuangshuang behind her. Ma Shuangshuang had a strawberry hairpin, but she did not. She was angry. As soon as they entered the house, Ning Shu no longer hesitated and began to eat. After a while, Ma Yongjun did not even have pig food to eat. Ma Yongjun's face was ugly, and his nose trembled. Obviously, he was angry and reached out to hit Ning Shu. After being beaten last night, Ning Shu's face was swollen, and he was dizzy. If he was slapped again, he would be in great pain. Ning Shu leaned back and dodged Ma Yongjun's slap. Ma Yongjun was even angrier. How dare you dodge? He grabbed a chair and threw it at Ning Shu. Ning Shu dodged the chair. The chair hit the table, and the plates were broken with a loud bang. Ning Shu looked at the children's room. It was said that mothers were strong. The two children watched their father beat their mother every day and lived in a depressed and painful family atmosphere. There was no warmth, only indifference and violence. In a family suffering from domestic violence, don't think about not divorcing. Think about the children and use the children as an excuse. Divorce was not good for the children. But they didn't think about what these scenes would do to the children's minds. The children might want their parents to divorce. Because my parents didn't divorce, why did they push the problems between husband and wife to the children? They always said that if it weren't for you, I would do something. What a tiresome and disgusting excuse. Did they want the children to learn from them? Ning Shu felt that Ma Yongjun was a psychopath, especially because he couldn't stand his wife's resistance. Didn't he need money to buy the broken plates? Ning Shu said in a low voice, Ma Yongjun, you are very good at fighting with women. If you have the ability, don't hit me with a chair. Kill me with money. Useless men usually had an abnormal self-esteem that was different from ordinary people's. Their self-esteem was abnormal. If they were useless, they were afraid that others would look down on them. Ning Shu's words were even more straightforward, you're a piece of trash. Did I not give you a bite to eat, or did I not have a roof to shelter you from the wind and rain? Who asked you to ask me for money? When Ma Yongjun was angry, his eyes and face were red. He looked very scary. Chapter 1661. Giving him a place to live was a great gift. If he didn't need to support his family, then why did he marry a wife and have children? The obvious characteristic of domestic violence men was that they had no sense of responsibility. And they were so righteous that you couldn't refute them. If you did, they would just say, you can leave if you don't want to live here. All the good people in the world were the same. They were kind and peaceful and could put themselves in other people's shoes. The bad people in the world were constantly breaking the bottom line. You could never imagine how bad a person could be. Ma Yongjun, how dare you? You think I want to live here? Ning Shu sneered. If you don't want to live here, then get out. You can only sleep on the streets. I give you food and a place to live. What else do you want? Ma Yongjun rolled his eyes, looking mean and disgusting. If you're so short of money, then go sell yourself. Oh, I forgot. You're about to start selling yourself. Why did you go to the marriage agency? You say it's a job, but it's to hook up men. Fuck you, retard. Thanks to you, I've been fired because I went to the marriage agency every day to make a fuss. Bitch. Ning Shu had never seen such a disgusting man. You're so ugly. Would anyone want you? Ma Yongjun said sarcastically, then the marriage agency is not a good place. It's just a place for pimping. Anyway, nothing good comes out of a dog's mouth. He always thought he was right. Did he think he was public knowledge? Ning Shu really wanted to kill Ma Yongjun. But he wanted to solve it peacefully. He wouldn't implicate the client and his two daughters. For such a scumbag, he sacrificed his life and his daughters with unlimited potential. Was Ma Yongjun worth it? Was he worthy? Ning Shu said, trash. What did you say? Ma Yongjun looked at Ning Shu with narrowed eyes. Trash. Ma Yongjun rolled up his sleeves. 3 days without a beating. You dare to touch a hair of mine. Ning Shu looked at Ma Yongjun. Did I marry you to be your human punching bag? A human punching bag made of flesh and blood that could cry and feel pain. Ning Shu put down his chopsticks and took a step towards Ma Yongjun with an indifferent expression. Do it. Ma Yongjun's nose twitched as he looked at Ning Shu, whose face was as cold as ice. He felt that his dignity was being challenged, so he raised his hand to slap Ning Shu. Ning Shu did not dodge. He just looked at him. Trash. Ma Yongjun was so angry that his eyebrows were about to explode. Hot blood rushed to his head, causing his face to turn purple. Ma Yongjun's slap came at Ning Shu with a gust of wind. Ning Shu took a step back and calmly avoided Ma Yongjun's slap. It was impolite not to reciprocate. Ning Shu smiled at Ma Yongjun. Ma Yongjun was already angry that he had failed to achieve his goal. Seeing this woman who was usually timid actually smiled provocatively at him, Ma Yongjun became even angrier. Ning Shu appeared behind Ma Yongjun in a flash. Ma Yongjun's heart skipped a beat. He rubbed his eyes. Why did he suddenly feel like he had seen a ghost? Ning Shu reached out and gave Ma Yongjun's neck a chop. Ma Yongjun's eyes rolled back and he fainted. Ning Shu opened the bedroom door and said to the 2 girls, "Don't come out." Mom. The eldest daughter, Lan Lan, looked at Ning Shu worriedly. Ning Shu smiled and said, "I'm fine. I'm going to cook for your father again. Your father is angry. Don't come out. Lan Lan, take care of your sister. Mom will take you to buy new clothes, new hair clips, and new hair bands tomorrow." Ma Lan Lan nodded heavily. Ning Shu locked the door with the key to prevent the 2 children from coming out. Ning Shu went to the bathroom and took a towel. He wrapped it into a ball and opened Ma Yongjun's mouth. It stinks. Ning Shu stuffed the towel into Ma Yongjun's mouth to prevent him from screaming. Ning Shu's favorite thing to do was to use violence to curb violence. If the same thing didn't happen to him, he would never know how painful it was. "I'll let you have a taste." Ning Shu wouldn't leave any marks on his body. Torturing people until they were covered in bruises was a despicable way to do it. Ning Shu moved his neck and his fingers warmed up, making cracking sounds. "You like to play, right?" Ning Shu straddled Ma Yongjun's body and grabbed his hand. He twisted his elbow into a strange angle and his arm cracked. Ugh! Ma Yongjun woke up from the pain. He raised his head and the veins on his face were exposed. His face was purplish red and he looked like he was in incomparable pain. Ning Shu leisurely let go of his arm. Ma Yongjun's arm fell limply. Before Ma Yongjun could breathe a sigh of relief, Ning Shu grabbed his other arm and cracked it again. Ugh! Ma Yongjun's mouth was gagged. He couldn't scream and couldn't speak. He wanted to curse and beg for mercy, but he couldn't say anything. Ma Yongjun's cold sweat poured down like rain and soaked his clothes. The turbid sweat had a foul smell. Ning Shu let go of his arm and leisurely grabbed the handkerchief beside him to wipe the sweat from his palms. Ning Shu turned around and grabbed Ma Yongjun's legs. Ning Shu hadn't started yet, but Ma Yongjun's whole body was trembling. In the end, he actually peed. He peed? Hee, trash. When it came to patience, women's patience was stronger than men's. Men only had explosive power, but in terms of patience, men couldn't compare to women. Perhaps women had been enduring since ancient times. Enduring, they had trained to have incomparable endurance. Why else would it be said that women were a very strong species? So what if he peed? Ning Shu grabbed his ankle and twisted it. With 2 cracking sounds, Ma Yongjun's body arched. With a groan, his eyes popped out and he fainted. Ning Shu flipped Ma Yongjun over. His pants were wet and had a foul smell. Ning Shu's expression was cold. He grabbed Ma Yongjun's clothes and pointed his finger at Ma Yongjun's heart. The power of the fire sun penetrated his skin and entered Ma Yongjun's heart. This was a confrontation of strength. Without strength, Ma Yongjun could only do this. In the future, when he didn't have the strength to hit others and didn't even have the strength to truss up a chicken, let's see if Ma Yongjun could still bully the weak. If you really wanted to get rid of someone, you had to get rid of the power he relied on to control his wife and children. That way, he would never be able to use his fists. With Huang Jing and Ma Yongjun's situation, it wasn't something that could be solved by divorce. With Ma Yongjun's shamelessness, even if they got divorced, he would still pester them. Some people were just so despicable. Ning Shu ignored Ma Yongjun, who was lying on the ground with a deathly pale face. He picked up the pieces of the plates on the table and threw them into the trash can. He tidied up the messy dining table. After doing all this, Ning Shu opened the door and said to the two children with a smile, "Have you finished eating? Your father is sick and is lying on the ground now." Ma Lanlan came out of the room and saw Ma Yongjun lying on the ground. She asked, "Did Daddy pee his pants?" Ning Shu nodded. "Your father is sick, so he peed his pants. Go get a small mat from the house and let your father lie on it." Chapter 1662. Ma Lanlan hated Ma Yongjun and her father. He always hit her and was unwilling to take a small mat. Ning Shu didn't say anything. He went to the kitchen to put some salt on the pork ribs and fried them for the children to eat. He placed a plate of tender pork ribs on the table and said to the two children, "Eat." Usually, the family ate very sparingly. Food like fried pork ribs were rare because ribs were expensive and weighed with bones. It wasn't worth it at all. The client basically didn't buy such things. The two children ate until their mouths were covered in oil. No one paid attention to Ma Yongjun, who was lying unconscious on the ground. Ma Yongjun wasn't popular at all in this family. He only cared about himself and didn't care about the other family members. He didn't care about them and would beat them up at the slightest provocation. If he didn't get retribution now, he would still be miserable in his later years. But Huang Jing couldn't endure until then. If she lived to 60 years old, she would be tortured by Ma Yongjun for another 30 years. Even a body made of iron couldn't withstand such destruction. Even if she had to give up the power of her soul, she had to get rid of such a man. Ning Shu wiped the two children's faces and hands and took them to school. When he returned, Ma Yongjun had already woken up. He struggled on the ground but couldn't get up. His limbs were weak and he couldn't get up at all. There was no visible wound on Ma Yongjun's skin. Ning Shu walked over, squatted down, and pulled out the towel in Ma Yongjun's mouth. Ma Yongjun breathed out quickly. His cheeks were sore. The towel stuffed his entire mouth and he couldn't even move his tongue. "Huang Jing, you've eaten a leopard's guts. You dare to hit me." Ma Yongjun wanted to roar, but his voice was soft and weak. His body had suffered a heavy blow. Now, his limbs didn't seem to listen to him. It would take a few days for him to recover. Ning Shu pinched her fingers, making cracking sounds. "If you still want to try it, I don't mind giving it a try." "You." Ma Yongjun's face turned green. "You want to kill your husband, don't you?" Ning Shu smiled. Half of her face was swollen and purple. When she smiled, it felt like a horror movie. Ma Yongjun was so scared that his anus tightened. Ning Shu faintly said, "Oh, I'm going to murder my husband." "Are you afraid?" "Good child." Ning Shu patted Ma Yongjun's head. "Let's die together. I'll take dichlorvos and you'll take dichlorvos. How about that?" The soft were afraid of the hard were afraid of the unreasonable, and the unreasonable were afraid of those who did not care about their lives. Ma Yongjun looked at Ning Shu in horror. He sat up and retreated. Are you crazy? That's right. It hurts a lot. I have nightmares every day. I dream that you hit me. Since we're husband and wife, we should share blessings and hardships together, right? Ning Shu walked into the kitchen, holding a kitchen knife, and looked at Ma Yongjun with a smile. Ma Yongjun's expression became distorted. His body went limp and he had no way to escape. Moreover, when he exerted a little force, his bones would make cracking sounds as if they were fractured. Ning Shu took the kitchen knife, squatted down, and pressed Ma Yongjun's leg, intending to cut off Ma Yongjun's foot. Ma Yongjun's whole body trembled. You lunatic, let go of me, let go of me. Ning Shu put the knife on his ankle. Ma Yongjun was so scared that he did not dare to move. The blade was about to cut into his skin. Ma Yongjun was so frightened that tears and snot came out. I was wrong, I was wrong. Ning Shu picked up the knife. There was only a white mark on the back of his foot. It did not cut his skin. What's wrong? Husband, how could you be wrong? You're not wrong. Ning Shu looked at Ma Yongjun with a smile. To deal with this kind of person, you have to be crazier than him. Once you get tough, the other party will immediately shrink back. Trash, trash. I was wrong. I shouldn't have hit you. Ma Yongjun immediately said. Well, what else? Ning Shu took the kitchen knife to trim his nails and blew on them. Ma Yongjun thought for a long time but could not think of anything. Other than him hitting him occasionally, there was nothing else. TSK, we don't have money to buy things at home. Ning Shu said, do you have money on you? Ma Yongjun reflexively wanted to get angry, but when he saw the kitchen knife in Ning Shu's hand, he nodded and said, I have some money in my pocket. You can use it to buy some food for the child. TSK, with this pretentious look, he really had the feeling that he had become a good man, a man who loved his children dearly. Ning Shu reached out his hand and took out a few bills with the smell of urine from Ma Yongjun's pants. Ma Yongjun peed his pants. The money in his pants pocket was also wet. Ning Shu, TSK, TSK, TSK. But even if the money was wet, it could still be used to buy things. Ning Shu spread the money on the ground. It was not much, only about 300 yuan. But it could still be used to buy some things for the child. Ning Shu sat cross-legged on the ground and stared at the money while cultivating. Ma Yongjun was weak all over. His body hurt when he moved. Ning Shu sat opposite him, making him feel uncomfortable all over. Ning Shu said to Ma Yongjun, I don't ask for much. Let's live well in the future. Don't hit me. Give me some living expenses every month. When Ma Yongjun heard Ning Shu's words, he heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. He even felt a little disdainful. Women would still have to bow their heads after a while. They would still have to give in. Okay, let's live well in the future, Ma Yongjun said to Ning Shu. Ning Shu glanced at Ma Yongjun's face and did not say anything. It was not scary to be poor. The scariest thing was to be poor and self-righteous. People like Ma Yongjun did not have a life plan, nor a stable job. He did not even have a basic career. What was the use of it? What could it do? Ning Shu took the hairdryer and dried the money. He had to spend the money quickly. Holding the money in his hand felt like it was stuck to his skin. Ning Shu put the wallet in a plastic bag in his pocket and said to Ma Yongjun, from tomorrow onwards, you will find a job. How can there be so many temporary workers? I will solve my own problems, Ma Yongjun said impatiently. His self-esteem was hurt by Ning Shu. Ning Shu curled his lips and glanced at the clock on the wall. It was time to pick up the child. There was too much work for the client every day. Picking up the child, washing clothes, cooking, and finding ways to get money. Doing some manual work could not earn much money. It was very difficult to get some food expenses every day. Ma Yongjun did not even pay a penny for the child's school fees. He could not figure out why Ma Yongjun wanted to get married and start a family. It was like finding a nanny to give birth to his child. If he was unhappy, she would be a punching bag. People like Ma Yongjun should be single for the rest of his life. He did not treat his wife well after getting married. He ruined the woman's life. Bitch. When a woman is lame, it is terrible. Ning Shu took the children home. When the two children saw Ma Yongjun, they looked timid. Ma Yongjun was very thirsty. He asked his eldest daughter, Ma Lanlan, to pour a glass of water. Chapter 1663. Ma Lanlan put down her school bag and poured him a glass of water. Ma Yongjun drank the water poured by Ma Lanlan and said to his younger daughter, "Did you behave at school today?" Ma Shuangshuang had 2 braids and looked very cute. She said softly, "Shuangshuang is obedient." Ma Lanlan stood aside, pursed her lips tightly, and turned to enter the house. Ning Shu was picking vegetables at the kitchen door when he saw Ma Lanlan enter the house angrily. People's hearts were biased. How could they be fair? Ning Shu sighed. It was really hard to do a task with children. Ma Yongjun was very biased and treated his 2 daughters with opposite attitudes. She could hate her eldest daughter and slap her until her face turned blue. She didn't care about her face at all. He didn't expect that the child would be a girl and still slap her face. He would sometimes give his younger daughter candy or something small. His elder daughter was like a weed. This was really something that made people jealous and angry. Ma Lanlan was probably furious in the house now. Ma Lanlan's temper was a bit sharp. Probably because she grew up in such an environment, she had her own thoughts. She was also conflicted about this family. No one wanted to see their father hit their mother every day and their mother's face was swollen every day. Ma Lanlan probably hated her father, Ma Yongjun. Ma Yongjun wasn't feeling well. It was rare that he didn't go out today. Sleeping next to Ning Shu and snoring made Ning Shu feel disgusted. Grinding teeth and farting was really disgusting. Marriage was probably a tomb for these reasons. Facing such a person every day. Ma Yongjun was proficient in eating, drinking, whoring, and gambling. He usually treated his home as a hotel and didn't go home all night. He slept in other women's beds. Scum. Ning Shu took a piece of paper and plugged his ears. He sat cross-legged on the ground and began to cultivate. Since he couldn't sleep, he might as well cultivate. With the ability, Ma Yongjun's strength was like a chicken in front of her. She could crush him to death with one pinch. But what was the point of crushing him to death? She had to think of a way out and ensure that she wouldn't get into trouble. Impulsive revenge was an idiotic behavior. He endured the bleeding in his heart and went into hiding. He planned thoroughly to protect himself and his 2 daughters. Ma Yongjun would definitely suffer, but this had nothing to do with Ning Shu. The next morning, Ning Shu woke the 2 children up. It was Saturday, and he promised to buy new clothes. Ning Shu whispered to the 2 children that he wanted to buy something. After breakfast, he left quietly, not caring about Ma Yongjun who was sleeping soundly. Ning Shu took the 2 children to the children's clothing store and bought 2 sets of new clothes for each of them. She bought another hairpin for Ma Lanlan and said, "You don't have to be angry with your father. What you like is your personal feelings. Don't expect others to do something for you." Ning Shu put the hairpin on Ma Lanlan's head, put his hand on her shoulder, and pushed her in front of the mirror. Very beautiful. Although he's your father, if he doesn't love you, there's nothing he can do about it, Ning Shu said. What did I do wrong for Dad to treat me like this? Ma Lanlan looked up at Ning Shu and asked. She really didn't understand. You didn't do anything wrong. It's not your fault that your father is fierce to you. It's just a matter of eye contact, just like how you hate your father. Don't be annoyed by these insignificant expectations that don't get a response. Work hard and grow up to be what you want. Ma Lanlan was angry and resentful because she couldn't get her father's love for her, especially when her father treated her younger sister better than her. He even vented his anger on her younger sister. Ning Shu squatted down and touched Ma Lanlan's forehead. Ma Lanlan will be a very happy girl in the future. All the things you lost will come back in another way. Ma Lanlan didn't understand, but because she bought a lot of things today, she smiled when she saw Ning Shu talking to her so softly. In the past, when she saw something, her mother would always drag her away, afraid that she would want it. "Thank you, Mom," Ma Lanlan said with a smile. Wearing new clothes and new shoes, with a beautiful hair clip on her head, she stood in front of the mirror and looked at a little beauty with clear eyes and a smile. Sometimes, clothes weren't just to cover the body, but also to show a person's mental appearance. Self-confidence wasn't easy to cultivate. After buying the clothes, the two children put on the new clothes. Holding one in each hand, he went to the stationery store to buy a new school bag for Ma Lanlan. It was a beautiful pink school bag with a beautiful princess printed on it. Ma Lanlan loved it so much that she couldn't put it down. Ning Shu bought it and bought new stationery and pens. Ma Lanlan wanted to buy a notebook with a fragrance. The girls in their class all liked such notebooks. Ning Shu nodded and Ma Lanlan immediately smiled. After that, Ning Shu bought an ice cream for each of the two children. The two children were so surprised that their eyes lit up and they licked it carefully. Ning Shu went to the market to buy some vegetables. She held the child's hand and carried the groceries home. The two children were wearing new clothes. They raised their heads and puffed out their chests, hoping that someone would see their new clothes. Their expressions were smug. When the mother and daughters returned home, Ma Yongjun, who had slept in, was already awake. Ma Yongjun's face was a little pale and his hand was covering his heart. Seeing that someone had entered the house, he looked up and down at his two new daughters. "Did you sell it? Where did you get the money to buy it?" Ma Yongjun wanted to strangle Ning Shu whenever he thought of his wife being unfaithful to him. Ning Shu dzz. Saying such things in front of the children. Ning Shu said to the two children, "Go in and play." The two children bought a lot of things and wanted to go in to play with their new things. Ning Shu closed the door and looked at Ma Yongjun indifferently. "Don't say such things in front of the children in the future. Do you think I'm unfaithful to my marriage?" Ma Yongjun's face darkened. "Then tell me, where did the money come from? Some wild man bought it, right? Now that he has found someone to take over, does he want to divorce me and run away with my child?" Ma Yongjun was a person who didn't know how to behave. He fooled around outside with a group of bad friends and was carefree. The things that he would do, he suspected that his wife would do the same. Ning Shu smiled and clapped lightly. "Your imagination is quite good. From some of the new things that she bought to her elopement with a wild man. This kind of man was really disgusting. He beat you up, causing physical and psychological harm to you. He never cared about your feelings." Ma Yongjun looked at Ning Shu maliciously. "If you dare to behave in front of me, Ma Yongjun turned and left. He probably went out to play again because the pain in his body had subsided. Chapter 1664. I'm not afraid of you being reckless, I'm just afraid that you won't be reckless. Ning Shu just curled his lips and went to the kitchen to make lunch. 3 meals a day. It felt like she was busy the whole day. She had to think of a living to support her 2 daughters. If the 2 children wanted to continue their education, high school, and college, they would need money. After dealing with Ma Yongjun, it would be a matter of livelihood. She wouldn't let the 2 children always wear other people's old clothes and use other people's used things. Children raised like this would be short-sighted in the future. These children could be cheated away with a little benefit. Some scumbags could cheat them away with some small favors. It wasn't unreasonable for children to be raised well. When food and clothing were taken care of, there would be spiritual pursuits. Ning Shu hoped that these two girls would be beautiful girls. However, this was all based on money. Food, clothing, housing, and transportation required money. As for living, Ma Yongjun's name was written on the property certificate of this house. Even if they got divorced, this house had nothing to do with the person who entrusted it. The marriage law stipulated that the couple's premarital property would not be distributed to the other party after the divorce. If Ma Yongjun wanted to kick her out now, there was nothing she could do because Huang Jing's name was not on it. Marriage laws generally put an end to a woman's idea of using marriage to find a long-term meal ticket and money after a divorce. It was even harsher for women. She would marry into someone else's family, work like a horse, and have children. In the end, there was no guarantee. If he wanted to kick you out, he could kick you out. These were all my family's things. They were all bought before the marriage. You had no right to share them. The appreciation had nothing to do with the spouse. If Ma Yongjun sold the house now and she wanted to get the house back, the court would not accept it. The fucking marriage law was telling women that their husband was not as reliable as insurance. It was too much of a bully, so no one could be relied on. Women had to be strong. Ning Shu smiled. There were so many men who were single. How could Ma Yongjun get a wife? Huang Jing's tragedy was caused by various factors. Ning Shu finished cooking and let the two children out to eat. Afraid that oil would splash on them, they changed into old clothes. They even ate 2 more bowls of rice. After the meal, Ma Lanlan helped Ning Shu wash the dishes. Ma Lanlan stood on a low stool and washed the dishes by the sink. Ning Shu scrubbed the pot and said to Ma Lanlan, "Lanlan, Mom wants to start a small business. What do you think is a good business? What does Mother want to do?" Ma Lanlan turned to look at Ning Shu. "Does Daddy agree? If Mommy really makes money, Daddy will snatch her away to play mahjong again. Don't worry about that. Mom has her ways." Ning Shu took out 2 eggs and made an omelette in the pot. He put in some lettuce and ham and wrapped it in the omelette. After a few minutes, Ning Shu handed the egg pancake to Ma Lanlan. "Try it." Ma Lanlan wiped her hands, took the pancake, and ate it. Ning Shu asked, "How does it taste?" "It tastes good." "I'm full," Ma Lanlan said. Ning Shu said, "Then how about I go to your school to set up a breakfast stall?" Ma Lanlan didn't say anything and just ate the pancake. "You don't want Mom to go? Are you afraid your classmates will see it?" Ning Shu said, "Mom needs money to support you and Shuang Shuang. You don't have to wear other people's clothes or use other people's things. Is it embarrassing to sell breakfast or embarrassing to set up a broken bowl in front of the school gate and ask for money?" "Of course it's embarrassing to ask for money," Ma Lanlan said without thinking. Ning Shu, "Actually, it's not embarrassing to ask for money. I'm not afraid. Mom earns money with her own hands. How is it embarrassing? Do you think it's not embarrassing to be beaten up by your father?" Ma Lanlan nodded. "I support Mom, but Dad will beat you." "Your father will agree if you can make money," Ning Shu said indifferently. "If you want to deduct money from her bag, prepare to break your hand." Other than that, Ning Shu really couldn't think of any other way to make a living. Huang Jing's education was a junior high school student. Huang Jing didn't have skills like medicine, lawyer, hacker, and programming at all. Moreover, she had 2 children to take care of. She had to wash and cook for the children 3 times a day. Everything was weighing down on her. Even if she went to work, she didn't have time to take care of the children. Especially Ma Shuangshuang was only 4 years old and was still in kindergarten. Such a small child couldn't take care of herself. Once a person was sad, a mountain pressed on them. Huang Jing didn't even have time to plan for herself. Maybe if Ma Yongjun didn't beat her, Huang Jing would feel a little happier. It was a happy thing for the couple to support each other. The more she thought about it, the more she felt depressed. In the evening, Ning Shu bathed the younger daughter and the older daughter bathed by herself. Ning Shu said to Ma Shuang while bathing, Shuang, you can't let people touch your underwear. You can't let people touch your neck either. There were always some perverts who molested children. It wasn't that there was no darkness in the world. There was no such thing as a peaceful life. It was just that someone was willing to carry the burden for you. Ning Shu put on the underwear for Ma Shuang. It means that you can't let people touch your underwear. Don't eat things from people you don't know. Even if it's an uncle you know, don't take it. Don't eat it. You have to come back and tell me. Otherwise, I won't buy you a beautiful dress. Ma Shuang hugged Ning Shu's neck and kissed Ning Shu. Shuang will remember. Ning Shu carried Shuang to bed. Ma Lan was also done bathing. Ning Shu said to Ma Lan, you too. You have to protect your body. The underwear is your private part. Don't let people touch it. It was to prevent people from molesting children when they were ignorant. It was too hard and exhausting to raise a child healthily. Ning Shu couldn't remember how many times he had been a mother. The responsibility was too big. He didn't want to do this kind of task. Ning Shu waved the fan and leaned against the bed to fan the two children and coax them to sleep. When the children fell asleep, Ning Shu went out of the children's room and looked at the clock on the living room wall. It was already 9:30 in the evening. It seemed that Ma Yongjun would not come back tonight. Ning Shu went out to find Ma Yongjun and went straight to a tea house. This kind of tea house was called a tea house, but it was actually a place for gambling. It was full of people day and night. They were either playing mahjong or poker. There were many such tea houses in small counties. Unlike the fast pace of life in big cities, the environment was good. It was quite suitable for retirement. The client once went to find Ma Yongjun, but he was beaten up by Ma Yongjun. Ma Yongjun was very cruel, as if he wanted to show his power and strength in front of outsiders and be worshipped by others. Ma Yongjun didn't stop until the onlookers came to stop the fight. The client didn't dare to go to the tea house to find Ma Yongjun. Chapter 1665. It was a cool summer night, but the street lights were not on. Ning Shu went to a tea house that Ma Yongjun frequented and went in to look for him. The tea house was filled with smoke, and the sound of mahjong was everywhere. Was he trying to get rich by playing mahjong? And every game was not a small one. He was not playing small games to pass the time, but playing big games. He might not even get a few thousand yuan in one night. Ning Shu went to look for Ma Yongjun. Ma Yongjun had a cigarette in his mouth and looked irritated. Ning Shu felt that he had been too gentle last time. Now Ma Yongjun was alive and kicking again. Take it slow. What was the point of crippling him in one go? Ning Shu walked over and patted Ma Yongjun on the shoulder. Ma Yongjun turned and saw Ning Shu. He immediately said, "What are you doing here? Go back." Ma Yongjun said in a low voice, "Go back. Don't embarrass me outside. I came to look for you because I have something to tell you. I want to start a small business, but I don't have money. Can you give me some money?" Ning Shu said loudly. Ma Yongjun's mahjong friends all stared at Ning Shu. "Didn't I give you money last time? Besides asking me for money all day, what else can you do? You wastrel. When did you give me money? We don't have any living expenses at home. Can you stop gambling?" Ning Shu's tone was pleading. "We don't have any money left. If you continue gambling, we won't even have a house." The commotion attracted a lot of attention. Ma Yongjun felt extremely embarrassed. He stood up and pushed Ning Shu out. I gave you food, clothes, and a place to live. I even gave you money. I only gave you 3,000 yuan last time. I knew you were using the money to support a gigolo. Ma Yongjun tried to change the topic and slandered Ning Shu for having an affair. Ning Shu was speechless. There was no 3,000 yuan. There was only 300 yuan soaked in urine. Ning Shu took Ma Yongjun's hand. Come back with me. Don't gamble anymore. Ma Yongjun felt extremely embarrassed. Why should a woman like you care about men's affairs? Since when is it your turn to speak about men's affairs? She was pestering him endlessly in public. I'm not leaving unless you come back with me, Ning Shu said stiffly. Staying up all day is not good for your health. Ma Yongjun was so angry that his face turned purple. He raised his hand and slapped Ning Shu. Ning Shu didn't dodge and was slapped to the ground. Ma Yongjun grabbed the chair and threw it at Ning Shu. Ning Shu hugged his head and squatted on the ground, curling up into a ball and crying out in pain. Ma Yongjun grabbed a chair and threw it at Ning Shu while shouting, "You shameless bitch, all you do is ask me for money every day. Where's the money I gave you? You're such a lazy bum. Why are you interfering when I'm playing mahjong with my friend?" The onlookers were afraid that something would happen. They quickly pulled Ma Yongjun back and advised, "Don't hit him. We can't let anything happen. You don't know, ouch." Ma Yongjun clutched his chest. His heart was in extreme pain. I'm so angry that my heart hurts. Marrying such a wastrel woman, I'm really unlucky. Ma Yongjun's face became paler and paler. But fortunately, the pain slowly disappeared. Sister-in-law, you go back first. We promised to send brother Yongjun back. Ma Yongjun's table mate, Ning Shu, said. Ning Shu raised his head from his arms and faintly looked at the person who spoke. Ma Yongjun spent more money on them than on his wife and children. Ma Yongjun had a little money on him, so he would treat his brothers and friends to a meal. This person was frightened by Ning Shu's cold eyes. He repeatedly promised, "Sister-in-law, you go back first. We'll send him back later." Ning Shu stood up, covered his face and cried. He turned around and ran out of the tea house. Out of the tea house, Ning Shu put down his hand and patted the dust off his body. The current Ma Yongjun could not cause any harm to her. When he was hit, his body was covered with a layer of qi. It did not hurt that much when he was hit. "Brother Ma, why don't you go back first? Sister-in-law is looking for you for something." Ma Yongjun's friends said to Ma Yongjun. Ma Yongjun let out a breath. He felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. It was probably because he was angry. He could bear it. Don't worry about her. Women are troublesome. Let's continue playing. Ma Yongjun called his friends to sit down. But before he could play around, Ma Yongjun's heart was in extreme pain. He could not bear it anymore. Ma Yongjun was sweating. You guys should send me home. I'm not feeling well. Ma Yongjun's friends looked at each other. The two of them got up and drove Ma Yongjun home. Ning Shu had just stepped home when there was a knock on the door. Ning Shu opened the door and saw Ma Yongjun being driven. He asked in a panic, "What happened?" Ning Shu blocked the door and did not let anyone in. "Sister-in-law, brother Ma is not feeling well. We are sending him home." Ning Shu looked anxious. Since he is not feeling well, he should be sent to the hospital. No, he must be sent to the hospital. Can you guys help me send him to the hospital? I am a woman. I can't send Ma Yongjun to the hospital. Please help. The two of them were helpless. They could only send Ma Yongjun to the hospital. The two of them drove Ma Yongjun. Ning Shu walked in front as if he was flying. The two of them almost had to run to keep up with Ning Shu. Fortunately, the hospital was not far away. But after they reached the hospital, the two of them were tired and panting. Sister-in-law, since he has been sent to the hospital, we should go back. The friends wanted to slip away. Ma Yongjun was pushed in for a checkup. Ning Shu said, I heard from Yongjun that you guys are his best friends. We don't have money now. We don't even have money to treat Yongjun. Can you guys lend me some money? Ning Shu said pitifully. I heard from Yongjun that if anything happens, you guys will definitely help. The friend said, Sister-in-law, this is all the money I have. Don't think it's too little. I only have this much left after losing tonight. As he said that, he took out a few $dozen. The friend said, yes, this is all I have. This person took out more than $100. The two of them did not even have $200. Thank you. Ning Shu rubbed his eyes as if he was wiping away tears. He quickly kept the money. I always heard from Yongjun that you guys are close. Other than the fact that you guys are not from the same womb, you guys are brothers. I didn't believe it before, but now I do. Don't worry. I will definitely return this money. Ning Shu promised. The two of them did not look too good. They just said, you are too polite. Buy something for Brother Ma. Consider it our nutrition fee. Ning Shu looked at the two of them. Just taking a few $100 was enough to make them feel bad. They usually ate and drank with Ma Yongjun. Only that idiot Ma Yongjun thought of them as brothers. Chapter 1666. Treating people to a meal. Using this method, he felt that he had a lot of friends outside. Who knows how they would scold him in their hearts. Calling him Brother Ma would make him treat him like a brother. Ma Yongjun couldn't differentiate between good and bad. He didn't bring anything home and the things he did were so stupid that people didn't know what to say. It was all because of his pride and vanity. He pretended that he had a lot of friends. Then, sister-in-law, will be leaving first. The gang of scoundrels wanted to leave but they would take money from their bags later. Ning Shu hurriedly said, don't go yet. Wait for Yongjun's results to come out. I have to thank the two of you in front of Yongjun. Ning Shu warmly urged the two of them to stay. The two of them couldn't leave. After all, they were brothers and good friends. Ma Yongjun was indeed a generous person. If they left just like that, Ma Yongjun would have a knot in his heart. Just as the door to the clinic opened, Ning Shu hurriedly asked the doctor, Doctor, what happened to him? He has a slight arrhythmia. He has to go for a checkup. There's something wrong with his heart, the doctor said as he wrote on the list. Ning Shu was very anxious. Why would this happen? Is it because he always likes to stay up late to play mahjong? Staying up late is an act of overdrafting the body. Not only is it bad for the heart, it's also bad for the heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys. This is an act of suicide, the doctor said. What do we do? What do we do? Ning Shu was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. He was out of his wits. It was as if the sky had collapsed. Doctor, you have to save him. Ning Shu shouted, although he always hits me, he's the child's father. He's the pillar of the family. Scatter the ashes and let them drift with the wind. Heaven and earth are home. Do a checkup. Also, be careful not to be too emotional. Angina is a big problem. Ning Shu nodded. I got it. Ma Yongjun opened the curtain and came out. Although his face was pale, he wasn't clutching his chest. His friends hurriedly went over to support him. Brother Ma, you have to take it easy. Ning Shu said, Yongjun, your friends are really nice. They even paid for your medical expenses and gave you 200 yuan. Ma Yongjun immediately shouted, you short-sighted woman, who told you to ask others for money? But what? Return the money to them. Ma Yongjun was agitated and his heart ached a little. Ning Shu was speechless. What are you pretending for? Pretending to be rich when you don't have money. Don't, brother Ma. Just take it as a gift from us. It's getting late. We have to go back. If there's anything, just call us. The group of friends said and left. Ning Shu took Ma Yongjun for an electrocardiogram and various tests. Ma Yongjun's heart rhythm was irregular. There was a problem with the bioelectricity in his heart, which disrupted his normal heartbeat. His heart should have been beating rhythmically, but now it was either thumping or thumping like a drum. If there was a problem with the blood supply to the heart, there would be all kinds of problems in the body. Ma Yongjun had to control his emotions. Otherwise, his heart would beat like a wild horse with rectum. Ning Shu smiled and helped Ma Yongjun home. After entering the bedroom, Ning Shu stuffed a towel into Ma Yongjun's mouth. Before Ma Yongjun could figure out the situation, she grabbed his hand. With a crack, Ma Yongjun's hand was pushed behind his back. Ma Yongjun suddenly trembled in pain and fell to the ground. He squatted and didn't move in the tea house to be beaten up in order to maintain his image as a victim. Behind closed doors, who knew what would happen? He didn't like to beat people behind closed doors, but he wanted to have a taste of this feeling of not being able to do anything. Ning Shu fiddled with Ma Yongjun's body. After finishing the whole set of the 8th broadcast, Ning Shu didn't panic at all. Ma Yongjun had already fainted. He directly fainted from the pain. Ning Shu pulled Ma Yongjun to the bed. She was a good wife and a loving mother. How could she let her husband sleep on the ground? At 6:00 in the morning, Ning Shu stopped practicing and prepared breakfast. The two children woke up early in the morning, wearing beautiful new clothes. As for what happened last night, the two children didn't know anything. After breakfast and tidying up, Ning Shu rode the bicycle to school with the two children. On the way back, Ning Shu went to the tea house again and found a few of Ma Yongjun's bad friends. Ning Shu looked at Ma Yongjun's friends with a conflicted expression and asked to borrow money. Yongjun's heart has a problem. The doctor said that he needs to take medicine to control his heart rate. You are all Yongjun's good friends, brothers. Can you lend us some money to tide us over? Ning Shu looked at the people playing mahjong. I will definitely return the money. Otherwise, I will kneel to you. They usually called Ma Yongjun brother Ma. Now that Ning Shu wanted to borrow money, no one was willing to do so. Yongjun needs money to buy medicine now, and it is imported medicine. Our family's money has been spent. If it weren't for the fact that I have no other choice, I wouldn't come to you. Ning Shu said, sobbing. Many people in the tea house looked at them. Ma Yongjun's bad friends had no choice but to pool some money to Ning Shu. It was not much, just 500 or 600 yuan. Thank you. This money is enough to buy medicine once. Ning Shu almost cried with joy. You are really Yongjun's good friends, brothers. Ning Shu took the money and did not forget to discuss them. Friends, they were all friends. With this money, they could pay for Ma Shuangshuang's kindergarten tuition. Ma Shuangshuang's kindergarten tuition was the most expensive. You are really good people. You will be rewarded. Ning Shu wiped his tears and went out of the tea house to buy groceries to cook at home. When he came back, the neighbors all asked Ning Shu about Ma Yongjun. Ning Shu looked sad and helpless. Now that he is sick, my heart is so complicated. He used to beat me. Now that he is sick, he may not beat me. But what about the family? That's right, that's right. The family can't do without a backbone. A fat woman looked at Ning Shu sympathetically and shook her head. She also comforted Ning Shu. Ning Shu nodded. Along the way, he was always stopped by people who asked what happened to Ma Yongjun. News of what had happened yesterday had already spread today. As long as someone asked, Ning Shu said that Ma Yongjun was sick. Then people who knew Ma Yongjun all knew that Ma Yongjun was sick. Later, it was directly spread that Ma Yongjun had cancer and would not live long. Ning Shu carried the groceries home. In the bedroom, Ma Yongjun was crying. It was probably too painful and could not bear it. Ning Shu put the grocery basket on the table and opened the bedroom door. He saw Ma Yongjun covered in sweat, clutching his chest and bones all over his body. Ma Yongjun saw Ning Shu and bit his cheek until it bled. "You hit me again. You dare to hit me." Chapter 1667. This kind of pain felt as if his bones were being broken. His meridians were being torn apart. Every time he moved, his entire body would be in pain. Ning Shu walked over and grabbed Ma Yongjun's soft arm. Then he loosened his grip and Ma Yongjun's hand fell limply. Ma Yongjun cried out in pain. Ning Shu moved Ma Yongjun's leg away and sat down. Ma Yongjun was in so much pain that he was sweating profusely. Ning Shu picked at his nails and looked back and forth at his rough hands. This body was still a year away from 30 years old. But this pair of hands, this face, no matter how he looked at it, it did not look like a 30-year-old woman. In a short 10 years of marriage, the client had been drained of all his vitality. Like a flower that had been drained of all its water. "Ma Yongjun, your current appearance really makes me happy." Ning Shu said with a smile, "No wonder you like to beat people so much. It turns out that beating people is so satisfying." "You're crazy." Ma Yongjun felt that his wife had gone crazy. She was simply a lunatic. He was already like this, but she could still laugh and look as if she was enjoying it. "Don't be angry. If you get angry, your heart might explode." Ning Shu reached out his hand and carelessly pointed at Ma Yongjun's chest. Ma Yongjun felt that his heart was in pain. His breathing was rapid and his body was tense. He was like a fish on a chopping board with his mouth wide open. There will be many days like this in the future. He lived in fear every day. Ning Shu took out a pill from the bedside drawer and stuffed it into Ma Yongjun's mouth. "Take this pill so that your heart won't explode." Ma Yongjun's face turned even redder. "You want revenge, right? I used to beat you and now you want to beat me. You damn woman, how can you be so ruthless?" Ma Yongjun was a little scared. He did not have the strength to fight back. If it was in the past, he would have directly pressed his wife to the ground and beat her up. Ning Shu closed the pill bottle. "Let's see who can endure who. Yes, I am ruthless. I have never heard of a green bamboo snake's mouth or a wasp's stinger. Both are not poisonous, but a woman's heart is the most poisonous." Ning Shu asked, "Where's your money?" "No money," Ma Yongjun said directly. "Oh." Ning Shu propped up his chin and looked at him. His other hand grabbed Ma Yongjun's finger and pressed it against the back of his hand. "Ouch, I really don't have any money." Ma Yongjun confessed everything when he was in pain. "Really?" Ning Shu pressed down hard and smiled at Ma Yongjun. "I've been tolerating you for a long time." "No." Ma Yongjun cried out. His face was trembling and he was dripping with cold sweat. Ning Shu looked at Ma Yongjun and guessed that he really had no money. "Then there's nothing we can do about it. We can only stop taking the medicine. After all, a family needs to eat." Ning Shu released Ma Yongjun's fingers, stood up, and said to Ma Yongjun, "Have a good rest. You must take good care of your body." Ma Yongjun stared at Ning Shu, dumbfounded. Was this guy crazy? Ning Shu picked the vegetables and cooked the rice. Then he went to pick up the children from school. When they got home, Ning Shu said to the two children, "Your father is sick. Go to the room and see your father." Ning Shu said as he pushed the door open. Ma Yongjun was lying on the bed with an ugly face. His two daughters didn't say a word. The scene was very awkward. Ma Yongjun saw this and was even angrier. His two children were like mice seeing a cat when they saw him. It was all because of Huang Jing's teachings. Ning Shu gently pushed the backs of the two children. Go and talk to your father. Dad will definitely not hit you, right? Ning Shu smiled at Ma Yongjun, showing his teeth. His teeth were shiny and looked a little scary. Ma Lanlan called out, Dad, and turned to leave. Ma Shuangshuang was young and had never been hit by Ma Yongjun. She didn't have so many complicated feelings about her father. Dad, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with me? I was hit by your good mother. She taught my children not to be filial to their father. Look at Ma Lanlan. What's wrong with her? Ma Yongjun had always been arrogant at home. Even if he was temporarily at a disadvantage. Wow, Mom. Ma Shuangshuang was so scared that she cried loudly. Ning Shu hugged Ma Shuangshuang. Don't be angry with the children, okay? Go and play with your sister. Don't cry. You're crying like a little kitten. Ning Shu squatted down and said to Ma Shuangshuang. Ma Shuangshuang rubbed her eyes and went to find her sister. Ning Shu closed the bedroom door and walked to Ma Yongjun. Ma Yongjun's face was blue. He couldn't sit still. What do you want? Ning Shu took out a towel from the drawer and stuffed it directly into Ma Yongjun's mouth. Ma Yongjun whimpered. Ning Shu grabbed Ma Yongjun's arm. With a crack, Ma Yongjun whimpered. His expression was distorted and his face was sallow. It was very fun. He could play with it for a year. Remember, don't quarrel with the children. Don't fight with the children. If you hurt the children, I will hurt you. Ning Shu pulled a thin quilt over Ma Yongjun's body and took out a tissue to wipe the cold sweat on Ma Yongjun's head. How can you sweat so much? Are you thirsty? Ma Yongjun nodded. Ning Shu took the towel from Ma Yongjun's mouth and took it away. Ning Shu asked Ma Lanlan to pour a glass of water for Ma Yongjun. Ma Lanlan stood still. Obviously, she was unwilling. Ning Shu said, he is your father. This is something you can't change. It's just a glass of water. It's easy. He will hit me. He likes Shuangshuang so much. Let Shuangshuang fall. Even if Ma Yongjun was sick and bedridden, he was still very indifferent to Ma Yongjun. Ning Shu just looked at Ma Lanlan with a smile. You want to vent your anger on your sister because the person you hate is nice to her. You want your father to treat you the same way he treats Shuangshuang. Ma Lanlan retorted, no. If not, you can calmly fulfill your responsibility. It's just a matter of convenience. You've done what you need to do and no one can blame you. There would always be people who would use the kindness of giving birth to someone. But to be honest, did Ma Yongjun fulfill his responsibility as a father? No. But as a child, Ma Lanlan would only see unfilial piety. This kind of little trick was meaningless. Instead, it made her feel embarrassed. She had done what she needed to do. As for the emotional support in her heart, sorry, she couldn't give it. Mental abuse was the real abuse. Ma Lanlan's face darkened. She poured a glass of water for Ma Yongjun. Smile more. Ning Shu drew an arc with his finger. Ma Lanlan carried the water into the house and fed it to Ma Yongjun. Ma Yongjun asked his eldest daughter, is your mother involved with another man? Ma Lanlan really wanted to splash a glass of water on his face. Her mother was so stupid to treat this person like a treasure. Ma Lanlan said with a dark face, I don't know. I'm at school every day. Ma Lanlan felt nauseous when she saw this face. Why was her father such a person? Hateful. Hateful. Chapter 1668. Their lives were against each other, which was why they didn't like each other. They were not family, father and daughter, but more like enemies. Ma Lanlan came out with a cup of tea. Ning Shu said, "Dad asked me if you had an ambiguous relationship with some wild man." Ning Shu thought, alas, why can't you learn? An 8-year-old child already had her own cognition and understood some things. Ning Shu looked at Ma Lanlan and said, "You should have your own judgment. You should know what kind of person Mom is." Ma Lanlan said, "Of course I believe in Mom. Why does he always say such things without caring about Mom's feelings?" "Because he doesn't care. He doesn't care, so he doesn't need to care about my feelings." Ning Shu put the ribs on the plate. "You don't have to feel depressed. Not everyone is like your dad." Ning Shu said, "There are good people and bad people. Mom met a bad person, so Lanlan will definitely meet good people in the future. Even if you don't meet good people, Lanlan can still live well. If you can't compete in character, then compete in strength. As long as you are strong, you don't need to be afraid of anything." "Silly." Ma Lanlan said, "Why don't I leave? I don't want to live with him." Even if she didn't have a father, it was better than such a father. Ning Shu said with a smile, "It's not time yet." Ning Shu brought the food into the house and said to Ma Yongjun, "Eat." Ma Yongjun picked up the food hesitantly. Ning Shu said, "Don't worry, I won't put dichlorvos in it. It wouldn't be fun to die so easily." Ma Yongjun's face was ugly. In addition to picking up the child from school, washing clothes and cooking, Ning Shu had another job. That was to borrow money from Ma Yongjun's bad friends every day. Yongjun said that you are good friends, friends of life and death. Now Yongjun is seriously ill and lying in bed. You should help him. In the beginning, these people gave him 10 or 20 yuan as if he was a beggar. Ning Shu said with a worried face, "A bottle of imported medicine costs several hundred yuan. It's not enough. If he stops taking the medicine, Yongjun's heart won't be able to take it." Everyone who had dined with Ma Yongjun, drank with him, and played around with him. Ning Shu would go and borrow money. He would go door to borrow money. Yongjun said that you guys are good brothers, and that you guys are willing to sacrifice yourselves for each other. Yongjun said that as long as there's a problem, he can tell you guys, and you guys can solve it. He didn't manage to borrow any money. On the contrary, many people took a detour when they saw Ning Shu. This was because as soon as they saw him, Ning Shu opened his mouth and asked to borrow money. Some people said directly, "Ma Yongjun and I are not friends at all. We just talked a few times and sat together to play mahjong." Ma Yongjun was recuperating at home. No one went to see Ma Yongjun and cut ties with him. Because once they were involved with Ma Yongjun's wife would approach them like a leech, asking them to borrow money, borrow money, borrow money. When Ma Yongjun was recuperating, these close friends didn't come to visit him or bring him any fruits. In a sense, Ma Yongjun's social connections were broken. Even if Ma Yongjun called these friends would avoid meeting him and directly blacklist him. They were originally bad friends. Without wine and meat, they naturally broke up. Ning Shu began to prepare for his own small business. He spent all his money to prepare a small cart and began to sell breakfast. It cost a few coins for an egg pancake, but he had to push the stall out at 5:00 in the morning. Ma Shuangshuang was still in a daze. She was held by Ma Lanlan and followed Ning Shu. Ning Shu gave Ma Lanlan a pancake and asked, "Lanlan, is there anyone in the class who plays well with you?" Ma Lanlan chewed the pancake. "No. Not even one." Ning Shu didn't believe it. "No one is particularly good with us. There is one whose family is very poor. When we talk, others call us paupers. They say that if you talk to us, you will become paupers." Ning Shu was speechless. Children's words carried no harm. Children's words were so hurtful. "Later, give that child a biscuit to try." Ma Lanlan asked worriedly, will we be able to sell our pancakes? Take your time. There's no rush. Ning Shu sat on the stool and said with a smile. When it was time to enter the school, there were more and more people. Because it was a stall that suddenly appeared, not many people bought it. Ma Lanlan took the pancake into the school. This pancake was for Ma Lanlan's classmate. Ning Shu set up the stall until noon. Ma Lanlan ran to Ning Shu's stall. Ning Shu asked, "Mom, how's business?" "It's okay." Nyo Dan said that Mom's pancake is delicious. Some classmates asked me where it came from. I said that my mom sold it. Ma Lanlan's face was red. Ning Shu touched her head. It will get better slowly. He was afraid that one person would run desperately in front while the other would hold on to his leg and not let him run. If the mother and daughters wanted to live a normal life, they had to solve Ma Yongjun's problem. Ning Shu pushed the cart back to the neighborhood. When he returned, he saw Ma Yongjun downstairs catching people and saying that Ning Shu beat him and abused him. They were all neighbors. Who didn't know what kind of person Ma Yongjun was? These people didn't believe Ma Yongjun's words. Ning Shu, you need to be taught a lesson again. Ma Lanlan was so angry that her whole body was trembling. She ran over and shouted at Ma Yongjun, "You've always been the one to hit Mom. When did Mom hit you? You're in the same boat as your mom. You believe whatever she says." Ning Shu pushed the cart over and said, "Stop fooling around. I know you're unhappy that I'm going out to do business, but you have to take medicine every day. Medicine costs money. You also have 2 children to raise." The commotion attracted a lot of people. The people who were watching the show all gathered around. Ma Yongjun saw so many people and gathered his courage. He pointed at Ning Shu and said, "Tell everyone, how did you treat me? You beat me when I was sick." Ning Shu said helplessly, "I didn't. Are you missing a piece of skin? Come back with me." Ning Shu reached out and grabbed Ma Yongjun's hand. Ma Yongjun shook Ning Shu off and threw Ning Shu to the ground. "Mom!" Ma Lanlan quickly helped Ning Shu up. She looked at Ma Yongjun angrily. She wanted to say something but was stopped by Ning Shu. "Lanlan, take your sister home." Ma Lanlan glared at Ma Yongjun and walked away with her sister. "Look at what you've taught her. She doesn't even look at me, her father. If she's older, she'll cut my head and neck with a knife." Ma Yongjun was so angry that he stomped his feet when he thought of Ma Lanlan's eyes. Looking at his appearance, I wonder whose son he is. Ma Yongjun spat a mouthful of phlegm in front of Ning Shu's shoes. Chapter 1669. Ma Yongjun spat a mouthful of phlegm at Ning Shu. If it wasn't for Ning Shu's quick reaction, the phlegm would have landed on her instep. Ning Shu wanted to vomit. In front of so many people, he had to give her some face. Why was his wife like a slave? It made Ning Shu's worldview explode. He liked to show off his authority in front of outsiders. Did he get his authority by beating his wife? Ning Shu said, "Yongjun, let's go back. You just want to pull me back, so you beat me again." Ning Shu said to the crowd, "Everyone, please help. Yongjun has a heart problem. Please help me send him back. I can't do it alone. He's going to beat me again," Ning Shu said pitifully. "Huang Jing, you're full of shit. You're the one who beat me, but you insist that I beat you. You don't know that she pulls my arm every day." Ma Yongjun shouted excitedly. But he immediately covered his chest. His heart started to hurt again. "Okay, go back. Go back. You have a wife. It's not bad." A few young and strong men clustered around Ma Yongjun and pushed him into the house. Ma Yongjun didn't dare to go home. If he went home, he would be beaten by his wife. "I'm not going back. I'm not going back. Ma Yongjun looked back at Ning Shu. Ning Shu smiled at Ma Yongjun. Ma Yongjun shivered and struggled not to go home. Some older women persuaded Ma Yongjun not to make a fuss and to live a good life. Don't beat your wife again. Some men whispered to Ma Yongjun that Ma Yongjun's health wasn't good. He had to rely on women for the time being. He just had to lower his head and act nice. It was said that women were realistic. Men were more realistic than women. Ning Shu put the cart in the garage and went home. He thanked the people in the house and poured water for them. They were here to watch the show, but now they left. Ning Shu sent these people to the door, then closed the door and turned to look at Ma Yongjun. Ma Yongjun pretended to be fierce and shouted, "I'm telling you, don't do anything to me. Otherwise, I'll make you suffer. You're not allowed to hit me again. I didn't hit you not because I couldn't beat you, but because you used domestic violence on me. I'm going to sue you." Ma Yongjun leaned against the wall and looked at Ning Shu with a trembling face. Ning Shu smiled. "What are you talking about? When did I hit you? Don't get too worked up. It's time to go in and take your medicine." "Mom." Ma Lanlan looked at Ning Shu worriedly. Ning Shu said, "Help Mom choose the vegetables. I'll get the medicine for your father." "Okay." Ma Lanlan took out the vegetables from the bag and slowly selected them. Ning Shu went into the house to get Ma Yongjun a pill and a glass of water. "Take the medicine." Ma Yongjun took the pill and was a little surprised. If it was before, this woman would definitely hit him. Why didn't she hit him now? Ma Yongjun's heart was very complicated. After lunch, Ma Yongjun went to the house to rest. The reason why he was so obedient was because Ma Yongjun called his friends and brothers, but no one answered him. His phone couldn't get through. This made Ma Yongjun angry. Now that he was sick, they ignored him. Ma Yongjun had nothing to do and didn't know what to do. He didn't dare to stay up late to play mahjong. After all, it was related to his life, and no one played with him. Moreover, his heart was very painful. This kind of pain was always reminding him that there was something wrong with his body. Now Ma Yongjun couldn't do heavy work. Once he did heavy work, his heart would explode. Ma Yongjun just lived one day at a time. When he had money, he would waste it. When he didn't have money, he would go to the construction site to do some temporary work. For example, work like bricks, mixing concrete, and so on. After a while, he would earn some money, then he would start to waste it. When he lost his money, he would start to work again, and the cycle would repeat. Now that he was sick, he had no source of income. Ma Yongjun suddenly realized that he had to rely on the woman who he usually beat half to death to support him. He had to rely on 3 women. There were no cigarettes to smoke, no alcohol to drink. He had to think of a way. Ning Shu sent the child to school and returned home. He saw Ma Yongjun sitting on the broken sofa like a master, looking at Ning Shu with his eyelids drooping. "Why are you back now? Did you use sending the child to school as an excuse to fool around with a wild man?" "Ning Shu, this idiot, what nonsense are you talking about?" Ning Shu was about to start preparing the things he needed to set up the stall tomorrow. If he had prepared earlier, he wouldn't have to panic now. Ma Yongjun saw that Ning Shu was ignoring him, so he walked over and kicked over the lettuce that Ning Shu had just washed. Ning Shu raised his head and looked at Ma Yongjun. Was this guy looking for a beating? And he was deliberately looking for a sense of existence, deliberately provoking him. Ning Shu picked up the lettuce on the ground and washed it again. Ma Yongjun kicked the basin over again. "Tell me, what wild man did you fool around with? Are you going to run away with another man while I'm sick?" Ning Shu picked up the lettuce with an indifferent expression. He was looking for a sense of existence so that she would beat him up. Ma Yongjun had been trying to make his presence known today. He had been looking for trouble. Ning Shu released his mental strength and scanned the corners of the room. He wanted to see what Ma Yongjun wanted to do. In the end, he found a cell phone on the fruit plate on the coffee table. The camera on the cell phone was turned on and recording. Ning Shu smiled indifferently. This kind of trick was left behind by her. Ning Shu stood up, ignored Ma Yongjun, and picked up the cell phone on the coffee table. Ma Yongjun's expression suddenly became ugly. "Give me back my cell phone." Ning Shu turned off the cell phone and threw it directly into the basin. The cell phone sank to the bottom of the basin. Ma Yongjun immediately picked up the cell phone, but it was already wet and couldn't be used. It was a very cheap thing to begin with. Ma Yongjun used his clothes to dry the water on the cell phone and found that it couldn't be used. He threw it on the ground angrily and the cell phone broke into several pieces. Ning Shu said with a smile, "I've lived with you for so many years. I know a little about what you're thinking. Take a picture to let people know that she abused him." Ma Yongjun also had a brain, but this brain was not in a normal place. It was just that he was self-taught in bullying women. Taking a picture of these things could threaten people. Huang Jing, who had abused him for 10 years, had no scruples. Did he think that she would fall for this? Did he think that women would be burdened by reputation? Ning Shu took out a handkerchief from the bathroom and wrapped it into a ball. "Since you want me to make a move on you so much, how can I not fulfill your wish?" Ma Yongjun's face turned pale and he fled to the door. Ning Shu stretched out his foot and swept Ma Yongjun's leg. Ma Yongjun tripped and fell to the ground. Ning Shu stuffed the handkerchief into Ma Yongjun's mouth. Ma Yongjun, who couldn't speak, looked at Ning Shu with pleading eyes. Ning Shu smiled and patted Ma Yongjun's face. The 8th set of broadcast exercises begins. Chapter 1670. Ning Shu tossed Ma Yongjun over and over again. Ma Yongjun's whole body was soft. In the future, Ma Yongjun would get habitual fractures. With a little force, the bones would break. Under the torment of dislocating bones and tendons, Ma Yongjun's joints were swollen, red and hot. Ning Shu stuffed an anti-inflammatory pill into his mouth. "Your joint tissues were edematous and inflamed. What did it have to do with me?" Ning Shu dragged Ma Yongjun to the bed, wetted the handkerchief, and wiped the sweat on Ma Yongjun's face. "Tut tut, I'm gentle and considerate." Then he covered Ma Yongjun with a thin blanket. Ning Shu never hit Ma Yongjun in front of the two children. The image of a loving mother couldn't be destroyed. It was always Ma Yongjun who hit people, the ferocious father. Ma Yongjun always stayed in bed. Ning Shu's explanation was that his heart couldn't be stimulated, so he could only stay in bed and sleep. As for the swelling on the body, it was because the heart couldn't pump blood and the pressure couldn't, so it was easy to cause edema. The younger daughter, Ma Shuangshuang, didn't understand very well. She only knew that her father was ill. Ma Lanlan thought it was good. Lying in bed like this, not making trouble, and not hitting her mother and her. In Ma Lanlan's heart, there was never the idea that a father needed to support the family and be responsible for one family member. Ma Yongjun was not a good husband or a good father. As for the pain Ma Yongjun suffered, Ma Lanlan didn't care at all. Ma Lanlan almost lived in the shadow of domestic violence since she was born. She hid in a corner and watched as her father punched and kicked her mother. He would even hit her, causing her face to turn black and blue. She went to school with her head down. But every time Ning Shu asked Ma Lanlan to bring food or water to Ma Yongjun, Ma Lanlan would also pour it. Doing these things didn't mean that she loved her father. Ning Shu's stall business gradually improved. He could earn 100 yuan a day. Although the money was not much, it could let the two children not wear other people's old clothes and use other people's old things. Now it was not the era where they didn't have enough to eat and warm clothes. Ma Lanlan sometimes took her classmates to the stall to buy egg pancakes to eat. In Ma Lanlan's words, her classmates' attitude to her was different. There was a saying that when you were a child, your parents' income determined the attitude of the people around you. When you grew up, the people around you would decide their attitude towards your parents, and children would be determined based on your income. This was a world coexisting of warmth and cruel. Ma was the happiest was no longer used by others. When he had nothing to do, he would help Ning Shu with some things that he could do. Now felt was a child. When Ning Shu first arrived in this world, Ma Lanlan's gaze was a little sharp. This gaze made people feel uncomfortable. Was bees was it? Was like a was? Was? Hating someone, it was very obvious. Was it? Some people's existences were like nightmares, and they would rather they disappear. Was it? Was it? Was it? Was or was it? Was or be? Apart from domestic violence, children were also the biggest victims. In a month, Ma Yongjun had to lie in bed for more than 20 days. His angina was getting worse. Even if Ning Shu didn't do anything to him, Ma Yongjun would still lie in bed. Sometimes, when the business was busy, Ning Shu didn't even go home. At noon, he would make pancakes for the two children at the stall. Ma Yongjun couldn't even get a bite to eat. Sometimes, Ma Yongjun would have to starve for a day when the children finished school at night. If he wanted to eat, he had to do it himself. Sometimes, Ma Lanlan would symbolically ask, "Dad, have you eaten?" Sometimes, Ning Shu felt that Ma Lanlan was mocking Ma Yongjun on purpose. Ma Yongjun wanted to get angry, but when he saw Ning Shu, he swallowed his anger. "I haven't eaten. Ask your mom to make some for me. Mom has to set up the stall at 5 in the morning. She works until late at night. Why does Dad want Mom to make food for you?" Ma Lanlan looked at Ma Yongjun with disgust. "How dare you? Since when was it your turn to speak? I gave you food, clothes, and even your life. Is this how you repay me for raising you? Huang Jing, if you dare to split the family again and instill hatred for me and our daughter, I'll kill you." Ma Yongjun firmly believed that his daughter's attitude was taught by an adult. Ma Lanlan still wanted to say something, but Ning Shu stopped her. Ning Shu said, "Go see if the pot is overflowing." She could teach Ma Yongjun a lesson. When the children fell asleep at night, she could even torture him to death. But in front of the two children, Ning Shu wouldn't show her ferocious face. Well, she had to create a strong mother. When Ma Yongjun saw Ning Shu like this, he felt extremely annoyed. This woman was very cruel and often tortured him to death. But in the children's hearts, this woman was a good person. In the eyes of outsiders, this woman endured his domestic violence all year round. But no one knew that this woman closed the door and greeted him with 18 kinds of torture. Every time, he felt that he couldn't endure it and was about to die. Now, Ma Yongjun's state was very strange. He was afraid of Ning Shu, but he couldn't leave Ning Shu. Because if he left Ning Shu, he couldn't survive. Habit was a terrible thing. People who endured domestic violence all year round, no one knew what mysterious power allowed them to survive. Even if outsiders asked them to change, they wouldn't be willing to change the current situation. Ma Yongjun had to plan for himself. "Shuang, come to Dad." Ma Yongjun waved to his younger daughter. Ma Shuang was a soft and cute little girl. She went over as soon as her father called her. Ma Yongjun squeezed his younger daughter's soft hand and glanced at Ning Shu in the kitchen. He asked softly, "Shuang, did any men come to look for your mother? Did any uncles come to look for your mother?" Ma Shuang said naively, "Yes, a lot of them. They came to buy pancakes from Mom." "Shuang, you have to keep an eye on your mother. Don't let your mother run away with other uncles. Once she leaves, she won't want you and will never come back. Ma Yongjun scared Ma Shuangshuang. Ma Shuangshuang nodded. I know. Ning Shu had good ears and eyes. Even if Ma Yongjun muttered, she still heard Ma Yongjun's words. It seemed that Ma Yongjun was aware of his disadvantage and wanted to find an ally in this family. His younger daughter, Ma Shuangshuang, was the best choice. She ran away with a man. Ma Yongjun was really interesting. He slandered her again and again, saying that she was going to find a man. What kind of person was he? He felt that everyone in the world was like him. Ning Shu moved her neck. It was time to exercise. Move and get high. Chapter 1671. Ning Shu cut off all of Ma Yongjun's social connections. His former friends were all cut off by Ning Shu by borrowing money. It could be said that Ma Yongjun had no one to talk to outside. Now, Ma Yongjun was like an isolated island. Other than his family, he couldn't find anyone to talk to. The neighbors ignored Ma Yongjun. They knew what kind of person Ma Yongjun was. To control a person, one had to cut off all of their support. Ma Yongjun was now watching Ning Shu very strictly. Even if Ning Shu wanted to do business, Ma Yongjun would follow. Many people who knew Ma Yongjun said that Ma Yongjun's temper had been worn away by his illness. But only Ning Shu knew that Ma Yongjun was like this because of fear in his heart. He needed to catch something. Ning Shu was now Ma Yongjun's life-saving straw. He was afraid that Ning Shu would run away with another man. As long as the person who came to buy the egg pancakes was a man, Ma Yongjun would stare at him with red eyes. As if he would pounce on him at any time. The next day, Ma Yongjun's heart palpitations and colic were even more serious. He could only stay in bed and couldn't do business. Moreover, Ma Yongjun seemed to have a habitual fracture. If he sprained his ankle slightly, there would be a crack and his ankle would swell bigger than a fist. His body was very weak. Then, Ning Shu went to do business alone again. Under the torture of the tendon dislocating hand, Ma Yongjun's bones and meridians became very weak. The wear and tear was very serious. He was in his 30s and had a body in his 70s. If he fell to the ground, he might not be able to get up. Even if Ma Yongjun wanted to do something to Ning Shu now, Ning Shu could push him to the ground with a finger and he might sprain his waist. Any accident would be able to kill Ma Yongjun. But Ma Yongjun would only endure Ning Shu's destruction. After destroying all of Ma Yongjun's support, you could do whatever you wanted to him. No matter what, he would endure and bear it. This was how masochists were nurtured. Ma Yongjun was struggling at death's door, while Ning Shu was only getting better and better. This was enough for Ma Yongjun to feel pain and despair. The more he wanted to grab hold of his only life-saving straw. If he couldn't use violence to make his woman submit, then he would have to endure what his woman did. Even if Ning Shu really had an unclear relationship with other men, Ma Yongjun could only endure it. It was just like how Huang Jing had tolerated Ma Yongjun and everything Ma Yongjun did outside just to avoid being beaten up by Ma Yongjun. And now, Ma Yongjun had to endure Ning Shu's actions just to survive. He was afraid that Ning Shu would abandon him. Ma Yongjun and Huang Jing's marriage was abnormal. Ning Shu and Ma Yongjun's current state was also deformed. They were originally two independent individuals, but due to some kind of relationship, they were forced to become subordinates. Ning Shu wanted Ma Yongjun to have a taste of this kind of precarious situation. Every day I live in fear and loneliness. When they were being beaten up, no one helped them. They just crossed their arms and shouted. When they met the wrong person, they couldn't be happy even if they used all their strength. They couldn't reason with them, and they couldn't win in strength. They were in despair. Who didn't want a beautiful and happy life? Everyone wanted to give their trust and not be let down. They gave their all and hoped to get a response. And not only did Huang Jing's efforts not get a return, but what she got in return was bad karma. Now, Ma Yongjun didn't have the strength to fight with Ning Shu. When the time came, whether the client wanted to stay or leave, it would be a matter of a sentence. Ning Shu's breakfast stall was also on the right track. There was a fixed source of customers every day. Students, teachers, and some people who didn't eat breakfast and were in a hurry to work. A day's income could let the two children live a slightly better life. Sometimes, Ning Shu would bake some small biscuits, and it was the kind that looked very cute. He would let the two children bring it to school and share it with their classmates. Ning Shu had learned how to make pastries, so baking biscuits wasn't a problem for him. Sharing things was the fastest way to build a friendship. Ning Shu wasn't worried about his younger daughter. He was more worried about his older daughter. Ma Lanlan had a thorn in her heart. It was good to have more contact with people. Huang Jing. Ning Shu was knitting. When he looked up, he saw a woman calling him. "Mom, why are you here?" Ning Shu stood up and let the client's mother sit on the bench. The client's mother had dark skin. She looked like a hard-working woman. "How's business?" Mother Huang asked. Ning Shu gave her a biscuit and said, "Business is not very good. After deducting the cost, we can't make much money." Mother Huang chewed the biscuit. "What are your plans for the future?" "What plans?" Ning Shu asked casually. "I heard that Ma Yongjun is sick now. He lies in bed all day. Do you want to live with a disabled person? How can you raise two children as a woman?" Mother Huang said anxiously. "Are you stupid?" "So." Ning Shu knitted a sweater. It was going to be cold soon. She knitted a sweater for the two children. "You're a woman. You can't abandon your husband and children, but you still need a man to support the family." Mother Huang took a big bite of the biscuit. "Just say it." Ning Shu had some guesses in his heart, but he said sarcastically. "The Li family in the same village. His wife died, leaving behind a 9-year-old child. You should divorce Ma Yongjun and take the two children to live with them. It's close to the same village. Your father regretted marrying you so far away," Mother Huang said. Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu suddenly didn't even have the strength to be angry. He asked leisurely, "If the matter is settled, how much money will the other party give this time?" She even tricked her own daughter. She was picked up. She was going to be a stepmother. A 9-year-old boy was very rebellious. He was already at the age where he could remember things and be sensible. He might not even acknowledge her as his mother. She put in so much effort, but he didn't appreciate it. In order to maintain fairness, she even let her daughter suffer. She wouldn't marry him even if she was stupid. She was jumping from one pit to another. Besides, Ma Lanlan and Ma Shuangshuang might not be used to the new life. Finding a man to raise the children could ensure that the man had no complaints in his heart and was willing to raise the children for others. After analyzing it like this, it was simply a huge pit. Even if the man was a good man, when there was friction in the family, he had to wrong his own children. He could only yell at his own children, not the other party's children. Otherwise, he would be a poisonous stepmother. "I can live without a man." Ning Shu said lightly, "Also, I don't believe in your taste. Ma Yongjun is a domestic abuser. What kind of scum is the next man?" Mother Huang's face suddenly darkened and she stood up. "What are you talking about? You are my daughter, and I want you to live well." "Thank you, Mom. I don't want a divorce for the time being," Ning Shu said lightly. Chapter 1672. This time, it must be a better man than Ma Yongjun. "My wife died of illness," Mother Huang said. "What illness?" Ning Shu asked casually. Mother Huang thought for a moment and said, I think it's a gynecological disease. Women always feel uncomfortable when they have a man and a child. Ning Shu sneered, the woman is not feeling well, but he doesn't take her to the hospital. Is this a good man? Another possibility was that he couldn't bear to spend money. If it wasn't a serious illness, he wouldn't go to the hospital. A gynecological disease dragged the woman to death. This is a woman's matter. How can a man talk about it? Besides, his wife's health wasn't good. There must be a man in the family, a pillar that can represent the family. Mother Huang said with some earnest and well-meaning words. Ning Shu said, a man who doesn't even care about his wife's life. She had to have a man, and she had to rely on a man psychologically. It infinitely magnified the weakness in her heart. I won't listen to you. You didn't ask for my opinion before marrying me to Ma Yongjun. Ma Yongjun beat me black and blue. Now Ma Yongjun is sick. He was a good-for-nothing before, and now he's a good-for-nothing. You want me to remarry? Can you not bully me like this? Who bullied you? I'm your mother. I want you to live well. That Ma Yongjun treated you so badly before, and now you want to protect him. Mother Huang was exasperated. Ning Shu almost couldn't help but roll his eyes. Previously, when Ma Yongjun had the strength to beat people, he asked the client to bear with it. Now that he didn't have the strength, she wanted her to divorce and marry a man who had the strength to beat people. What kind of hatred? Once a person was unlucky, there would always be more than one unlucky thing. Don't be afraid, there are still countless unlucky things waiting for you. Mother Huang saw that Ning Shu was only concerned with knitting, so she stomped her feet and left. Ning Shu stopped Mother Huang. Mom, don't take their money. I'm not divorced yet. If you take their money and force me to marry someone else, I'll be accused of bigamy. I'll be sued. When the time comes, you'll still be the unlucky one. After all, I've already married into another family. It's none of my business what kind of money you receive. Don't always think about making money for your son. I'm also a piece of meat that fell from your body. I don't ask for equal treatment, but don't sell me off. Mother Huang didn't speak for a long time. She said angrily, how did you become like this? You used to be very obedient. Oh, looks like you've really received money. That's great. I'm going to call the police. You guys are trafficking. Ning Shu said happily. In the past, he sold the yellow crystal to Ma Yongjun for the betrothal gift money. Now, for some money, she wanted Ning Shu to divorce Ma Yongjun and sell him again. What are you talking about? Mother Huang looked at Ning Shu in shock. You're such an unfilial daughter. How did I give birth to such an unfilial daughter? Ning Shu shook her head. I'm not unfilial. I'm contributing to building a society ruled by law. I'm determined to crack down on illegal activities. Ning Shu stared at Mother Huang. Mother Huang was so angry that she turned around and walked away. Ning Shu looked away. The first time was fine, but the second time? Would she have to control the yellow crystal for the rest of her life? There were many unfilial children, and there were also unkind parents. Ning Shu thought about it and decided to call the police. She told the police about it. If her family really threatened her because of this, it would be considered human trafficking. Especially since she wasn't divorced yet. Sometimes, if you don't do something ruthless, people will always bully you. With the involvement of the police, the nature of this matter wasn't as simple as the betrothal gift money. For the first time, Ning Shu realized that Ma Yongjun had an advantage in being alive. It allowed her to be married. TSK. Ning Shu shook his head. If a woman didn't have a man, the people around her would try their best to push her to a man. The client's wish was to protect her daughter and get rid of Ma Yongjun. She didn't want to get married again. People were fickle. Ning Shu didn't think that she could find a good man for the client. What a headache. That night, her family called. The client's parents and brother were all blaming Ning Shu. They blamed Ning Shu for calling the police. Raising a wolf for nothing, blah, blah. Ning Shu put the phone aside and washed the vegetables calmly. Mom, why did Grandma scold you? Ma Lanlan asked Ning Shu. Ning Shu said, Lanlan, your grandma wants me to marry another man. You're going to have a new father. Ma Lanlan's face was a little pale. She lowered her head and didn't say anything. Ning Shu saw Ma Lanlan's expression and knew that Ma Lanlan was afraid. Lanlan, Mom needs your opinion. Tell me, what should Mom do? Ning Shu looked at Ma Lanlan and asked. Mom, what if Mom meets someone like Dad again? Ma Lanlan asked. I don't want to call someone else Dad. Well, Mom will listen to you. Ning Shu said directly. Really? Ma Lanlan stared at Ning Shu with her eyes wide open. I think life is very good now. It's very peaceful. Mom will raise you to be the best girl, a girl who can live a good life. Ning Shu pinched Ma Lanlan's little nose. Thank you, Mom. Ma Lanlan hugged Ning Shu and cried. Ning Shu patted Ma Lanlan's back. Mom is wrong. You have suffered so much. No, Mom is also very wronged. The person who is wrong is Dad. I hate him. Ma Lanlan wiped her tears and said. Don't hate someone. It's boring. It would take a lot of effort. Hatred was the behavior of the weak. Just like if she met Zhang Jiasen. Zhang Jiasen had caused her to be killed once. And the uncle who killed her indiscriminately. She wouldn't hate him. She would only find a chance to kill him. She wouldn't always think of him and hate him. When she looked down on him in the future, she wouldn't hate him at all. Ning Shu, put your hands on your waist. I am such a heartless and unreasonable person. Ma Lanlan Ning Shu said, Mom, I will make you happy. Thank you. Mom will make you happy too. She said with a smile and continued to wash the vegetables. Ma Yongjun stood at the door of the bedroom and looked at Ning Shu and her mother. He just looked at them silently. Ning Shu turned around and glanced at him, then looked away coldly. Ma Yongjun didn't have the strength and energy to make a scene now. He should have realized that he wouldn't have a good ending if he made a scene. No one around him believed him, and no one was on his side. Even if he told others that he was beaten and abused by his wife every day. The people around him would only say that he was crazy. It was really hopeless. Ma Yongjun didn't feel very good now. He didn't dare to shout, didn't dare to fight, didn't dare to do anything. Chapter 1673. Under the ravaging of Ning Shu's spirit and violence, Ma Yongjun had become a man without the strength to truss a chicken. Without strength, he was psychologically dependent on Ning Shu. He successfully developed a trembling body. When sleeping at night, Ma Yongjun put his hand on Ning Shu's waist and whispered into Ning Shu's ear, Are you going to run away with another man? Ning Shu directly removed the hand from his waist, sat up and said with a smile, Yes, my parents found me another man. I'm going to strangle you, damn woman. Ma Yongjun stretched out his hand to strangle Ning Shu's neck. Ning Shu kicked Ma Yongjun off the bed. With a plop, Ma Yongjun held his waist. His waist was twisted and he couldn't move. Help me up. Ma Yongjun was in pain and sweating profusely. Ning Shu shouted. Ning Shu lightly said, Just sleep under the bed for the night. Ma Yongjun lay on the ground and gasped. Seeing that Ning Shu was determined not to help him, he slowly pulled the edge of the bed and got up. Ma Yongjun looked at Ning Shu on the bed with an unpredictable expression, If you run away with another man, I will definitely poison you to death. Ning Shu turned around and stared at Ma Yongjun. If Ma Yongjun had such thoughts, then shouldn't this Ma Yongjun die unexpectedly? Should this kind of disaster be left to the client? If the client died, then what would happen to the client's 2 children? What if the 2 children were also poisoned to death? This kind of domestic violence and poisoning was not unheard of. I'm just saying. Ma Yongjun saw that Ning Shu was staring at him, his eyes were a little scary, so he immediately said softly. Ma Yongjun clutched his chest, his heart was in extreme pain. Ma Yongjun fell on the bed. Ning Shu begged, "Give me medicine, it hurts, it hurts." Ning Shu took the medicine and stuffed it into Ma Yongjun's mouth. Ma Yongjun felt a sharp pain in his heart. His entire face turned purple, and his lips turned black. It was a terrifying sight. As soon as he felt the pain, he lost all strength in his body. It was as if his life force had been taken away. Ma Yongjun wanted to get rid of this pain, but he also wanted to live. Ning Shu didn't know what kind of attitude the client had towards her husband. Did she solve the problem or not? But as a widow, the client had to listen to her parents' arrangements. She just had to force her to get married. She took her child and married into another family. Ma Yongjun wasn't a good person to begin with. Ning Shu propped up her chin. If she killed the client's husband, would the client come after her? Everyone was protective of their own people. Difficult to handle. Quest complete. Do you wish to leave the quest world? 2333's voice rang in Ning Shu's mind. Ning Shu raised her eyebrows. If she left now, it meant that the client did not want her to kill Ma Yongjun. Ning Shu nodded. Let's go. Ning Shu returned to the system space and immediately looked at the black hole on the wall. This black hole is really big. Yes, it is. I don't know why. 2333 said. Ning Shu clapped her hands. It's really interesting. First it shrinks, then it grows bigger. It's quite fun. Does it grow bigger and smaller back and forth like this? I don't think so. Is it that free? 2333 said uncertainly. Ning Shu rubbed her eyebrows and sat on the sofa to absorb the pure soul power. Among the super quest takers, her soul was considered very weak. The only way to obtain soul power was to complete quests. There were also unorthodox ways to obtain soul power, but that kind of soul power was not processed. That kind of soul power was mixed with the 7 emotions and 6 desires of a person, resentment, and strong obsessions. Absorbing such soul power would affect one's mind. If the obsessions in the soul were too strong, it could even change one's personality. The price was too high. Ning Shu did not plan to take this path. Besides, if it caused serious consequences, she might be obliterated. She did not know how this pure soul power was processed. There was no rush. After all, quest takers had plenty of time. Just do more quests. Ning Shu opened her status panel and looked at the reward Huang Jing gave her this time. Huang Jing's quest made Ning Shu's heart heavy. Happiness was not easy to come by. It was not easy to maintain happiness. But to make a person suffer, she had to give herself to the wrong person. Love could be found slowly. Usually, things that were done in a hurry would be ruined. Everything would slowly peel off the mask in front of time and reveal its true face. Name, Ning Shu. Age, 27 level, Super Quest Taker Points card, 121, 10 million points for 1 point card. Soul value, 2 health value, 2 wisdom, 4 luck, 4 charm, 1 spirit, 3 martial strength, 4 aptitude, 2 faith, 6900 merit, 19315 soul strength, 25 authorization ticket, none law understanding, none pure heart, loyal heart items, calm aura, calming pill, faith aura, amulet 4, upgraded amulet plus 2 honorary titles, goddess of war, selfless ancestor skills, 5th ring shooting technique, intermediate close combat technique, intermediate martial arts, intermediate poison technique, beginner business management knowledge. Beginner code programming, beginner lawyer skill, sage ghost catching skill, beginner cooking skill, intermediate embroidery skill. Aura, mother of the world, queen's blessing, sister model worker, Chen Shi's blessing, leader aura, grass blessing, lifelong friend, Miao Miao Miao's blessing. Healer of the dying, Zhu Sun Yang's blessing, founding woman, Chen Ermiai's blessing, beauty of the law, Chen Ning's blessing, bane of the blood clan, Jasmine's blessing, communication between races, by San Yang's blessing, heart of the brave, Wang Ying's blessing. Completed quest taker Huang Jing's wish, protect her daughter and get rid of her husband Ma Yongjun. Quest completion rate, 100%. Quest reward, 5 points card, 5 attribute points, 70% soul strength, 3000 faith, including previous world's accumulation. This time, there was 70% soul strength. Ning Shu touched his own soul. It was still weak. Excluding the soul strength that the quest taker and the system should have obtained, the rest had been taken away. There were millions of quest takers. If one quest taker took away a bit of soul strength, how much soul strength would it be? Just thinking about it made Ning Shu salivate. No wonder people were so angry. Yu Qing said that the higher-ups enslaved the quest takers and made them earn soul strength. Even if they used the soul strength to accumulate, they could also create a strong warrior. Ning Shu was helpless. It was a pity that he was only a person with a back view and no background. He could only take it step by step. If he took the wrong path, he might be killed. Ning Shu prayed amen in his heart. He hoped that he would not be attracted by those flirtatious bitches. Quick methods always had side effects. He steadied himself. /BK. Chapter 1674. Ning Shu crossed his legs and distributed the attributes. Name, Ning Shu. Age, 27. Level, Super Mission Enforcer Points card, 1215, 10 million points for 1 point card. Soul value, 21 health value, 2 wisdom value, 41 luck value, 41 charm value, 1 mental power, 31 martial power, 41 aptitude, 2 faith power, 69003000 merit, 19315 soul strength, 25 authorization ticket, none rule, none pure heart, loyal heart tools, calm halo, calming pill, faith halo, amulet 4, upgraded amulet 2 honorary titles, goddess of war, selfless ancestor skills, 5th ring shooting technique, intermediate close combat technique, intermediate martial arts, intermediate poison technique, beginner business management knowledge, beginner code programming, beginner lawyer skill, sage ghost catching skill, beginner cooking skill, intermediate embroidery skill. Halo, mother of the world, queen's blessing, sister model worker, Chen Shi's blessing, leader Halo, Grassa's blessing, lifelong friend, Miao Miao Miao's blessing. Healer of the dying, Zhu Sun Yang's blessing, founding woman, Chen Ermiai's blessing, beauty of the law, Chen Ning's blessing, bane of the blood clan, Jasmine's blessing, communication between races, by San Yang's blessing, heart of the brave, Wang Ying's blessing. Ning Shu opened the screen. He wanted to see how the mission enforcer, Huang Jing, dealt with the matter between her and her husband. The screen showed the scene of Huang Jing and Ma Yongjun setting up a stall. Ning Shu was speechless. He had thought of many scenes, but he had never thought of such a harmonious scene. Ma Yongjun looked tired and pale. He looked very thin. Under the torture of his illness, all the hostility had been worn away. Huang Jing did not divorce Ma Yongjun. People were born free, but they were never shackled. They fought for a divorce, but who could guarantee that the next one would be better? Ning Shu turned off the screen and wished Huang Jing happiness. Ning Shu did not expect better from her. For someone who struggled to survive, it would be good to be slightly better than now. Perhaps to Huang Jing, as long as her husband did not hit her, it was a good thing. Ma Yongjun being sick like this was the best thing. As for the pain, sorry, I don't care. Ma Yongjun's role was to be a shield and give the child a complete family. Huang Jing did not need to listen to her parents and remarry. He was born free, yet he was bound. The greatest freedom is to say no when others hurt you. This was freedom. Everyone was on this huge net. It didn't mean that they were free just because they were free. He didn't ask for romantic flowers, didn't ask for love when the sky fell and the earth cracked, and didn't ask for heart-wrenching. It was good to be able to live like this. On the screen, Huang Jing was smiling at the client. His face was oily and warm. It was also covered in soot. Ning Shu said, "Pay more attention to this black hole. If anything happens, you'll know in time." "I know." Ning Shu stood at the entrance of the law space, and after a while, he stood inside the city of water. Comprehending the laws was a very powerless thing. Every time she completed a mission, she would come here to comprehend the laws. But to no avail. There was no progress at all. The laws could not be seen or grasped, and one would not be able to understand her at all. She was a tormenting little fairy. Ning Shu was not in a hurry to comprehend the laws. He first went to the restaurant and spent some faith power or merit to get some food that could strengthen the soul. He relaxed his mood, listened to some gossip, and relaxed his mood. Then, he slowly comprehended the laws. Ning Shu was a noob now. How noob was he? Even in Water City, he could only find places with very weak law fluctuations. Those mission takers who had mastered the laws all went out of the city to comprehend them. Outside the city, the power of the laws was overwhelming. Like Ning Shu, he would be destroyed by the power of the laws in a second. Ning Shu didn't even dare to get close to the slightly stronger power fluctuations in the city. Ning Shu found a place, leaned back against the wall, sat cross-legged, and began to comprehend the laws. If he had known earlier, he would have comprehended the law of fire first. The law of water was too complicated. Ning Shu took a deep breath and began to comprehend. He emptied his mind and emptied it again. He didn't know if it was of any use. If he had faith power and bought the insights left behind by the seniors, he wouldn't be so helpless. Ning Shu was in a daze. He seemed to have fallen asleep. He heard the sound of the door opening, footsteps coming from afar, and someone calling his name. Ning Shu, the voice was vague before, but it was getting clearer and clearer. Why aren't you getting up? Get up. Ning Shu opened his eyes and looked at the person who called him in a daze. He moved his lips, Mom. Get up. Your brothers have eaten breakfast and are leaving. They won't wait for you. Ning Shu was at a loss. Mom, I seem to have had a strange dream. A very long strange dream. Ning Shu's voice was very tender. She raised her hands in front of her. A pair of small hands. This made her unable to distinguish between reality and dreams. What strange dream? Ning Shu's mother took clothes from the wardrobe and turned back to ask Ning Shu. I grew up, then I died, then I came back to life. Ning Shu lowered his head. What is this? Hurry up and put on your clothes. It's time to go to school. Ning Shu's mother helped Ning Shu to put on his clothes. Ning Shu looked around. This was her room. There was a hug bear on the bed. She was a little girl. Mom, what I said is true. Ning Shu refuted, I really had a very, very long dream. She couldn't distinguish between reality and dreams anymore. Yes, yes. Otherwise, you wouldn't have slept until the sun shone on your butt. Ning Shu's mother said unhappily. In the dream, she had a system. A very annoying system. 2333, there was no response. Nothing. I want to cultivate, but there is nothing in my mind. Little girl, what's wrong with you? What 2333? Ning Shu's mother helped Ning Shu put on her pants and took a comb to tie Ning Shu's hair. Mom, how old am I now? Ning Shu asked. 11 years old. Ning Shu's mother tied 2 small braids for Ning Shu and tied 2 hair ornaments. Ning Shu pinched her arm. It was very painful. Ning Shu looked in the mirror. A face with light eyebrows and clear eyes. Ning Shu patted her face. What happened? She had a dream. Was this a dream, or was what happened before a dream? So confused. Ning Shu's mother carried her school bag on Ning Shu. Hurry up, your brother is probably going crazy down there. You are not allowed to sleep in anymore. Ning Shu's mother said to Ning Shu. Oh. Ning Shu looked at her mother. She was very confused. It felt like a lifetime ago. Which was a dream and which was reality? What happened to her? Chapter 1675. Mom, I dreamed of you 10 years later. You hugged me and cried. Okay, stop talking. Ning Shu's mother couldn't help but interrupt Ning Shu. I think you're confused. Ning Shu, you stupid girl, hurry up. I'm late because of you. I'll teach you a lesson. Second brother Ning shouted downstairs. Coming. Ning Shu carried her school bag. Ning Shu's mother stuffed some money into Ning Shu's bag. Buy some food in school if you're hungry. Ning Shu sighed and ran downstairs. Watch my unique martial arts. Ning Shu went downstairs and hit second brother Ning's chest with her palm. Holding the basketball, second brother Ning didn't move at all. He looked at his sister inexplicably as she put her hands on her breasts. You're stupid. Second brother Ning flicked Ning Shu's forehead. Second brother Ning put on his sportswear and looked at his watch. Oh my god, it's so late. It's Abbess Miju's morning reading. Second brother Ning pulled Ning Shu and ran out of the small villa. There was no one at the door. Damn, Ning Rong ran away again. Ning Yao quickly pushed the bicycle out and let Ning Shu get on. Ning Shu sat in the back seat while Ning Yao pedaled with all his might, creating a gust of wind. Brother, I had a dream. I dreamed about you, Ning Shu said. What did you say? Ning Yao asked without turning his head. Ning Shu sat on the bicycle and waved his palm. He said loudly, I said I had a dream. In the dream, I was very powerful. I told you it was a dream. You're so stupid. Ning Yao rode the bicycle and finally caught up with Ning Rong, who was riding leisurely in front. Ning Shu suddenly felt that his parents named him casually. Ning Rong, Ning Yao, Rong, Rong. Glory, I always have to take care of this girl. Next time, you take care of her. Ning Yao angrily shouted at his brother. I'm about to take my middle school exams. Time is precious, Ning Rong said leisurely. Bullshit. I saw a girl behind you last time, so you left the seat behind you empty for her. Ning Yao immediately exposed his brother's dirty thoughts. Ning Shu was speechless. Who's the burden? Ning Shu put his hands on his hips. I'm going back to tell mom that you're in love. Ning Shu pointed at his brother. Can't my sister compare to the girls outside? Ning Rong glanced at Ning Shu. You can't compare to the girls outside. You weren't like this when you grew up. At that time, you were clearly mature, steady, and responsible. I didn't expect you to be such a person. Ning Shu said with his hands on his hips. Are you stupid? Did you sleep too much? You can still count. Ning Rong sneered. She turned the corner of the bicycle and quickly disappeared from sight. Fuck, Glory is such a bitch. Brother Ning stepped on the bicycle. Can't you eat less? You're too heavy. The bicycle can't run. Ning Shu, I didn't eat anything this morning. Ning Shu looked up. The sunlight shone through the gaps between the leaves. It was a bit dazzling. Ning Shu used her hand to block the sunlight. She really had a strange dream. She didn't have the power to overturn rivers and seas, nor did she have the ability to read people's faces. She had nothing. She was just an ordinary child, an 11-year-old girl. It was just a dream. Brother Ning, I dreamt that I became all kinds of people. I met many handsome guys, much more handsome than you and Brother Ning. Ning Shu grabbed Ning Yao's shirt and looked confused. Was she dreaming now, or was she dreaming about what she had experienced in the past? She didn't know what was real. Brother Ning stepped on the brakes and looked back at Ning Shu. Are you okay? I think there's something wrong with your brain. When they arrived at the school, Ning Yao parked the car. Ning Yao went to the middle school department while Ning Shu went to the elementary school department. Ning Shu was in the 6th grade. She walked into the classroom and saw the tables and chairs. Looking at the blackboard, she felt like she was in another world. Ning Shu sat down in her seat. Suddenly, someone pulled her braid. Her scalp was burning. His head tilted to the side with the force. Ning Shu, your hair flower is so ugly today. Let me take it off for you, the chubby boy sitting behind Ning Shu said proudly as he held the flower on Ning Shu's head. Damn fatty, give it back to me. The chubby boy ran away. Ning Shu stuck out her tongue. At this time, the teacher entered the classroom. Ning Shu shouted, Teacher, this damn fatty pulled my hair again and took my flower to put on his own head. I didn't put it on my head. Go out and stand. How can a boy bully a girl, take her things and pull her hair? We're all classmates. Why did you call a classmate fatty? Go out and stand. Ning Shu and the chubby boy stood outside the classroom. The chubby boy gave the flower to Ning Shu. Here you go. I didn't expect you to be such a person. You even complained to the teacher. Ning Shu took the flower and tied it into her braid. Next time you dare to pull my hair, I'll ask my 2 brothers to beat you up. You're so annoying. I'm not playing with you anymore. The chubby boy moved to the side. Ning Shu lowered her head. A drop of blood dripped on the ground. Ning Shu was stunned. She felt that her nose was a little warm. She touched her nose with her hand and felt fresh blood. Little Ning Shu used her hand to cover her nose, but the blood continued to flow out. What's wrong with you? Ah, your nose is bleeding. The chubby boy immediately ran into the classroom and shouted, Teacher, Ning Shu is having a nosebleed. The teacher came out and quickly brought Ning Shu to the toilet. She splashed cold water on her neck and used various methods to stop the bleeding. After a lot of blood, the nosebleed finally stopped. Ning Shu sat in her seat with a pale face. Her nose was stuffed with paper and she was sleeping on the table. She didn't understand the teacher's lesson. After school, Ning Rong came to pick up Ning Shu. Seeing the paper in Ning Shu's nose, she quickly asked, What's wrong with you? Ning Shu shook her head. It's nothing. It's just a nosebleed. Ning Rong was a teenager of 15 or 16 years old. She was more mature than her second son, Ning Rong. Let's go back. Mom will take you to the hospital. Oh, I'm sure it's nothing. But I feel like I've forgotten something. Ning Shu hit his head. His mind felt empty. Did the nosebleed ruin your IQ? Ning Rong squatted down. I'll carry you. Ning Shu lay on Ning Rong's back. I think I had a dream, but I don't remember what it was about. You left your brain at home and forgot to bring it, Ning Rong said. The teenager's shoulders weren't very broad. He looked very handsome in his shirt. He was the model of a girl's first love. Where's second brother? Ning Shu asked. Playing basketball. As they spoke, they arrived at the car shed. Ning Rong pushed the car out. Ning Shu sat in the back seat. His head was leaning against Ning Rong's back. I'm so weak. Too much blood. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.